Have you ever noticed how a single comment from someone else can ruin your entire day? Or how a sudden change in plans leaves you feeling frustrated and off balance for hours? We live in a world that constantly tests our emotional stability: traffic jams, criticism, unexpected setbacks, the endless noise of opinions and expectations. It often feels like our inner peace is at the mercy of external events, as if we're passengers on a turbulent flight with no control over the turbulence. But what if I told you there's another way? What if you could cultivate a state of mind so resilient that outside circumstances simply can't shake you? This is the ancient promise of Stoicism, a philosophy designed not to numb you to life, but to make you emotionally untouchable. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most powerful Stoic thinkers, put it perfectly when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. That simple yet profound idea is the foundation of everything we're about to explore. Your reactions, your judgments, your inner responses, these are where your true power lies. Emotional resilience isn't about avoiding feeling. It's about reclaiming control over how you interpret and engage with the world. It's the difference between being swept away by every wave of emotion and standing firm like a lighthouse in the storm, guiding yourself back to calm no matter what happens around you. In this video, we're going to walk through 35 subtle shifts in thinking, each rooted in Stoic wisdom, that can help you build this unshakable inner strength. These aren't abstract theories, they're practical, actionable mindset changes that you can start applying today. From learning how to reframe obstacles as opportunities to practicing gratitude, embracing what you can't change, and even finding peace in the awareness of life's impermanence, each shift is a step toward greater clarity, purpose, and emotional freedom. By the end, you'll have a toolkit of mental strategies to transform daily challenges from sources of stress into opportunities for growth. This isn't about becoming invulnerable, it's about becoming wiser, calmer, and more in command of your inner world. So let's begin this journey together. The first and most critical shift is recognizing where your power truly lies. This is the core of Stoic philosophy, a principle so fundamental that everything else builds upon it. The ancient teacher Epictetus, who was born into slavery and yet found profound freedom through his thinking, laid it out with stunning clarity. He taught that some things are within our control and some are not. Within our control are our opinions, our pursuits, our desires, our aversions. In short, anything that is truly our own action. Not within our control are our body, our property, our reputation, our office. In short, anything that is not our own action. This is the Stoic dichotomy of control. Understanding this distinction is like being given a map after wandering lost for years. So much of our anxiety and frustration comes from expending immense mental and emotional energy trying to command the uncontrollable. We try to manage other people's opinions of us. We rage against the weather or a traffic jam. We worry incessantly about market fluctuations or whether a project will be approved. We are essentially trying to hold back the ocean with our bare hands, and then we feel exhausted and defeated when it inevitably washes over us. Epictetus offered a far wiser path with his famous advice: make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Think about a common modern stressor, being stuck in terrible traffic when you're already late for an important meeting. The typical reaction is a cascade of stress, clenching the steering wheel, muttering curses, feeling your heart rate climb. You are pouring all of your energy into a situation you have zero control over. You cannot magically clear the road. You cannot stop the clock. Now apply the shift. What do you control? You control whether you use this time to practice deep breathing and calm your nervous system. You control whether you use the hands-free function to call ahead and politely inform them you've been delayed. You control the podcast you listen to or the thoughts you choose to entertain. You control your response. The traffic itself is merely an external event. Your suffering is an optional addition you choose to layer on top of it. This principle applies just as powerfully to emotional events like receiving harsh criticism. The criticism itself, the word spoken, the opinion held, is outside your control. It has already happened. What is within your control is your judgment of it. You can choose to see it as a personal attack designed to wound you, which will lead to anger and defensiveness. Or you can choose to see it as neutral data. You can sift through it, discard any malice or error, and extract any tiny nugget of useful feedback that might help you improve. One path leaves you emotionally battered, the other leaves you empowered and unchanged at your core. Your peace of mind was never held hostage by the other person's words, only by your own interpretation of them. So I want you to take a moment and bring to mind one specific situation in your own life where you frequently find yourself worrying, stressing, or getting upset. Now apply the filter. Honestly ask yourself, what parts of this situation are truly within my control and what parts are not? The simple act of making this list is the beginning of reclaiming your emotional sovereignty. What if every challenge you've ever faced was secretly designed to make you stronger? This isn't just optimistic thinking, it's a fundamental shift in perception that lies at the very heart of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics didn't see obstacles as random misfortunes to be avoided or endured. They saw them as essential training grounds for developing virtue, resilience, and inner strength. Marcus Aurelius captured this transformative perspective perfectly when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Read that again. What stands in the way becomes the way. This simple statement contains a profound truth. The very thing blocking your path isn't just a hurdle to overcome. It's the raw material you need to build a better version of yourself. Think of it like this: a muscle doesn't grow by remaining relaxed. It grows through resistance, through the strain of lifting weights it hasn't lifted before. In the same way, your character, your patience, your courage, these inner muscles only develop when they're tested. Without resistance, without something to push against, we remain soft and undeveloped. The obstacle isn't an interruption of your path, it is the path. It's the curriculum. The universe, in its own way, is giving you exactly what you need to grow, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment. A difficult person in your life isn't just a source of frustration. They are your personal trainer in patience and understanding. A project that fails isn't just a waste of time. It's a masterclass in humility and a source of invaluable data for your next attempt. We can find powerful historical examples of this principle in action. Consider the Roman philosopher Seneca, one of the wealthiest and most influential men in Rome. He was suddenly accused of adultery with the emperor's niece and sentenced to exile on the barren island of Corsica for 8 long years. This was a catastrophic fall from grace, stripped of his wealth, status, and home, banished to a place of hardship. It would have been easy and understandable for him to descend into bitterness and despair, but Seneca chose a different path. He reframed this immense obstacle. He saw his exile not as a punishment, but as an opportunity. It was in this forced solitude, away from the distractions and politics of Roman society, that he produced some of his most profound and lasting work, writing essays and letters that explored the nature of resilience and the human condition. The obstacle, his exile, became the very thing that cemented his philosophical legacy. this shift in thinking is available to you right now, in your own modern life. That stressful deadline at work isn't just anxiety-inducing. It's an opportunity to practice focus and discipline under pressure. A financial setback can be a brutal lesson in frugality and a chance to reassess what you truly value. Even a personal loss, as painful as it is, can open your heart to deeper levels of compassion and gratitude for the connections you still have. The event itself is neutral. The meaning, whether it's a catastrophe or a catalyst, is assigned by you. So I want you to try this. Bring to mind a recent difficulty you've experienced. It doesn't have to be a major life event. It could be a daily frustration, a small failure, a disagreement. Now, instead of seeing it as a problem, ask yourself, how did this challenge secretly serve me? What strength did it force me to develop? Did it teach me patience? Did it reveal my own resilience? Did it show me who my true friends are? Did it redirect me onto a better path I wouldn't have chosen myself? When you start looking for the gift hidden within the obstacle, you fundamentally change your relationship with life itself. You stop being a victim of circumstance and start becoming an alchemist, turning the lead of misfortune into the gold of wisdom. Imagine waking up tomorrow and the use of your dominant hand was gone, or that the person you love most was no longer a phone call away. For a moment, truly sit with that feeling, the hollow ache, the sudden void where something familiar and cherished once was. This powerful, albeit uncomfortable, exercise is at the heart of our next shift, a Stoic practice known as Premeditatio Malorum, which translates to the premeditation of evils. But don't let the name mislead you. This is not about cultivating a pessimistic, fearful outlook or inviting misery into your life. It is quite the opposite. It is a deliberate and profound technique for building emotional fortitude, deepening gratitude, and vaccinating your mind against the shock of adversity by confronting potential loss on your own terms before fate forces you to. The Roman philosopher Seneca was a powerful advocate for this practice. He advised that we should rehearse human suffering in our minds, not because we desire it, but because we recognize its possibility. He wrote, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." What he means is that fear and devastation often stem from the element of surprise. A hardship we have calmly considered in advance loses its capacity to shock us and paralyze our reason. By periodically contemplating the loss of our health, our wealth, our relationships, or our status, we accomplish two vital things. First, we strip future misfortunes of their terrifying novelty. And second, and perhaps more importantly, we instantly transform our perception of the present, allowing us to see the ordinary comforts of our current life with fresh, vibrant appreciation. Think of it as emotional fire drills. We conduct fire drills not because we want the building to burn down, but so that if the alarm ever sounds, our response is practiced, calm and effective, not panicked and chaotic. Premeditatio Malorum is a fire drill for the soul. It prepares you so that if life takes something away, your inner stability isn't taken with it. For instance, take a moment to sincerely contemplate your ability to see. Consider what your life would be like without the colors of a sunset, the words in a book, or the face of a loved one. After dwelling on that reality for just a minute, open your eyes and actually look around. The world seems sharper, more vivid, more gift-like, doesn't it? You haven't changed your reality, you've changed your awareness of it. The Stoics believed that we don't truly own anything in this life. We are merely temporary custodians. Everything, our bodies, our homes, our friendships, is on loan from fortune, and it can be recalled at any moment. This practice isn't morbid. It's a realistic acknowledgement of that truth, which in turn makes us more grateful, present, and joyful custodians of the gifts we currently hold. So here is a challenge for you today. Choose one comfort, one thing you utterly take for granted. It could be something as simple as the Wi-Fi connection you're using to watch this, the comfortable chair you're sitting in, or the reliable function of your body that allows you to breathe without thinking. Now for just 5 minutes, mentally give it up. Visualize what your day would be like without it. Feel the minor frustration or the major inconvenience. Sit with that feeling, then let it go and return to your present reality. Notice the immediate shift. That small thing you barely thought about 5 minutes ago now feels a little bit like a miracle. This is the alchemy of negative visualization. It turns ordinary life into a treasure chest by reminding us that none of it is guaranteed. What if you could not just accept but fall in love with your destiny? This is the radical invitation of the fourth shift, a principle known as amor fati, a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. While famously associated with the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, this idea is deeply Stoic at its core. It moves far beyond mere tolerance or grudging acceptance of life's events. It is an active, enthusiastic embrace of everything that happens, the good, the bad, the confusing, and the painful, not as random misfortunes, but as essential threads in the unique tapestry of your life. This isn't about passive resignation. It's about finding a profound and active love for the story you are actually living, rather than the one you wished you had. The Stoic foundation for this is the unshakable belief that we are part of a rational, interconnected universe. Everything that occurs is part of a larger, natural order. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this, writing in his Meditations, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs." From a Stoic perspective, to rage against your fate is to rage against nature itself, a futile and exhausting endeavor that only generates inner turmoil. Amor fati is the ultimate release from that struggle. It is the decision to stop fighting the current and instead learn to swim with it, discovering that the river was taking you where you needed to go all along. Consider a modern example, the devastating experience of an unexpected job loss. The initial reaction is often a hurricane of fear, anger, and self-doubt. You might spend weeks or months replaying the event, feeling betrayed, and obsessing over the unfairness of it all. This resistance creates immense suffering on top of the practical challenge. Now apply amor fati. This doesn't mean you have to be happy about losing your job. It means you choose to love the reality of it because it is now a part of your story. You ask different questions. How can this forced change serve me? What door has this closure opened that I was too comfortable to walk through myself? Perhaps this loss pushes you to finally start that business you've always dreamed of, or to retrain for a field you're truly passionate about, or simply to reassess your values and realize your identity was too tied to a job title. The event itself remains the same, but your relationship to it transforms from one of opposition to one of collaboration. This shift requires a deep trust in the process of your own life. It's about looking back at your past, not with a list of regrets, but with the understanding that every single event, every heartbreak, every failure, every unexpected detour was necessary to bring you to who you are now. That difficult relationship taught you boundaries. That financial mistake taught you resilience. That period of loneliness taught you self-reliance. Amor fati is the practice of turning toward those chapters with gratitude instead of aversion, seeing them not as stains on your past but as the very ingredients of your strength. So I want you to try a powerful exercise in reframing. Bring to mind one significant event from your past that you have resisted, a situation you often look back on with resentment, regret, or a sense of if only that hadn't happened. Now, instead of pushing that memory away, invite it in. Look at it squarely and ask yourself, How did this event, however painful, contribute to my growth? What strength did it force me to develop? How did it ultimately protect me or redirect me? How is my life different and perhaps even better because of this twist in my path? When you can find a way to love even the most challenging parts of your story, you integrate them. They lose their power to haunt you and instead become sources of wisdom, making you truly emotionally untouchable because your entire past has become your ally. How often do you measure your own worth by an outcome you couldn't fully control? That promotion you didn't get, the project that failed despite your best efforts, the date that didn't lead to a second one. We live in a culture obsessed with results, with winning, with visible success. It's incredibly easy to tie our self-esteem and our emotional state to these external markers, handing over the keys to our inner peace to the unpredictable and often unfair whims of fortune. This is where the fifth shift offers a profound sense of liberation, detaching from outcomes and re-anchoring your sense of value in your intentions and your efforts alone. The Stoics drew a crucial distinction between the internals and the externals of any endeavor. Your intention, your effort, your ethical approach, your focus, these are internal. They belong to you and are 100% within your control. The final result, however, whether you get the job, win the game, or receive praise, is an external. It is influenced by a million factors outside your command, other people's decisions, luck, timing, even the weather. The great teacher Epictetus drilled this home, advising his students to focus exclusively on their own actions. He said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Your job is not to win the race. Your job is to run it with all the integrity, focus, and strength you can muster." The outcome of the race is not your job. It is simply what happens. Consider the mindset of a dedicated athlete. One athlete trains with discipline every single day. They eat well, study their craft, and push their limits. On the day of the big race, they execute their strategy perfectly, leaving everything they have on the track. But they come in second place, beaten by a competitor who had a genetic advantage or simply had a better day. If this athlete's worth is tied to the gold medal, they will leave that track feeling like a failure, their entire journey devalued by a single result. Now imagine another athlete in the exact same position. This athlete has internalized the Stoic shift. They know they controlled their preparation and their performance. They can stand there having given their absolute best and feel a deep and unshakable pride. The color of the medal doesn't define them, their character during the process does. The first athlete is emotionally fragile, tossed about by every win and loss. The second is emotionally untouchable because their validation comes from within. This applies just as powerfully to our daily lives. You can prepare a brilliant presentation for work, crafting every slide with care and rehearsing your delivery. You control that. You cannot control if your boss is distracted by a personal problem during your talk, if a key client is in a bad mood, or if a technical glitch interrupts your flow. If you attach your sense of accomplishment to the project's approval, you set yourself up for potential anguish. But if you attach your accomplishment to the quality of your work and the integrity of your effort, you walk out of that room with your head held high, regardless of the outcome. You did your part, and your part was excellent. The rest is not your burden to carry. Take a moment to think back on a recent experience where you poured your heart into something. You worked hard, you had good intentions, you did everything right from your perspective, but the result wasn't what you hoped for. Maybe it was a rejected application, a failed exam, or a personal goal you didn't meet. Now try to separate the two. Look honestly at your effort and acknowledge it for what it was. Can you see the value in that effort, independent of the disappointing result? Can you honor the person who tried rather than punishing them for not succeeding? This is the practice of detaching from outcomes. It's not about not caring, but about caring more about the one thing that truly defines you, your character in action. Someone cuts you off in traffic. What's your first thought? If you're like most people, a judgment instantly flashes through your mind. What a jerk, that idiot. They did that on purpose. This automatic internal verdict feels like a simple observation of fact, but in reality, it's the very moment where we voluntarily hand over our emotional peace to a stranger we'll never see again. This brings us to our sixth powerful shift, the practice of observing without immediately judging. This isn't about becoming passive or indifferent. It's about creating a crucial pause between an external event and your internal emotional response, a space where reason and choice can live. The Stoics understood that our suffering rarely comes from the events themselves, but from the judgments we attach to them almost instantly. Marcus Aurelius offered perhaps the clearest instruction on this when he wrote, "Take away your opinion, and then there is taken away the complaint." Take away the complaint, I have been harmed, and the harm is taken away. This is a breathtakingly simple yet radical idea. He is saying that the event is just an event. It is neutral. The harm is not in the car swerving in front of you. The harm is created by your opinion about the car swerving in front of you, your judgment that it was a malicious, personal, or terrible act. Your opinion is the source of your anger, your raised blood pressure, and your ruined mood, not the action of the other driver. Let's break down that traffic scenario with this new lens. The raw data, the objective observation, is this. A 2-ton vehicle changed lanes abruptly in close proximity to my vehicle. That's it. That is the neutral fact. Everything else, that reckless maniac, they have no respect for others. This is going to make me late and ruin my morning, is a layer of judgment we add on top. These judgments are like throwing gasoline on a small spark. The initial event might be a minor spark of surprise or alertness, but our judgmental story about it creates a roaring fire of stress and anger. Now imagine applying the shift. The car cuts you off. Instead of launching into the internal tirade, you simply note the fact, a car has moved into my lane. You then respond rationally. You might gently tap your brakes to create a safe following distance, but you skip the entire dramatic narrative. You haven't been emotionally hijacked. You've observed, assessed, and responded, all without the self-inflicted distress of judgment. This practice extends far beyond traffic into every corner of our lives. Your boss sends you a brief, direct email. The observation is, my boss sent a 3-sentence email. The judgment is, she's being short with me. She must be angry about my report. I'm probably in trouble. That judgmental story creates a whole afternoon of anxiety and dread. A friend doesn't reply to your text. The observation is, my phone shows no reply from this person. The judgment is, they're ignoring me. They must be upset with me. What did I do wrong? The observation is a simple, neutral piece of data. The judgment is a painful, full-blown story that may have no basis in reality. The Stoic practice is to become a scientist of your own mind, carefully collecting the data of your experience without immediately contaminating it with interpretation. So your challenge today is to become a detective of your own judgments. Pick one situation, any situation, where you feel a flash of annoyance, frustration, or anxiety. It could be a long line at the coffee shop, a critical comment from a colleague, or even a messy kitchen. Pause for just a moment and ask yourself, what is the raw, neutral fact here? And what is the judgmental story I am adding on top of it? The simple act of distinguishing between the two is a monumental step toward reclaiming your inner calm. You start to see that you have a choice. You can choose the story of catastrophe and personal offense, or you can choose to simply see what is, respond with clarity, and keep your peace intact. Imagine a quiet sanctuary within yourself, untouched by outside storms, a fortress of calm that no external event, no harsh word, and no sudden crisis can ever breach. This is the powerful Stoic metaphor of the inner citadel, a concept that transforms the idea of resilience from something you practice into something you are. It's not a physical place, of course, but a profound state of mind you cultivate, a psychological stronghold built from your values, your reason, and your self-awareness. While the world outside is inevitably full of chaos, noise, and events you cannot control, your inner citadel is a space of absolute sovereignty where you are always safe, always whole, and always at peace. This is the ultimate expression of Stoic self-sufficiency, the realization that your tranquility does not depend on your circumstances, but on your inner resources. Marcus Aurelius, who faced immense pressures as the Emperor of Rome, constantly returned to this idea in his private writings. He reminded himself, people look for retreats for themselves in the country, by the sea, or in the mountains, but this is altogether unlearned. You can retreat into yourself at any moment you like. Nowhere can a person find a retreat more full of peace or more free from care than in his own soul. He understood that we often seek peace by trying to rearrange the external world, a vacation, a new house, a quieter environment. But true, unshakable peace is an inside job. It's a retreat you can access instantly, the moment you close your eyes and turn your attention inward, no matter what is happening around you. Your inner citadel is always available, always waiting for you to return home to yourself. So how do you actually build and access this fortress in your everyday life? It begins with a simple but deliberate act of mental withdrawal. The next time you feel stress rising, perhaps during a tense meeting, after receiving a frustrating piece of news, or even while stuck in a crowded, noisy place, try this. Take one single, deep breath. In that breath, consciously pull your attention away from the external trigger and inward toward your core. For that one moment, stop engaging with the problem out there and instead connect with the stillness in here. You are not ignoring the situation. You are simply changing your center of gravity from the chaos outside to the calm within. This tiny pause is the drawbridge to your citadel being pulled up, giving you a moment of safety to choose your response from a place of strength, not reactivity. What does your personal inner citadel contain? This is a powerful question to explore. Visualize it. Perhaps its walls are built from your deepest values: integrity, compassion, courage. Maybe its silence is filled with the remembered wisdom of quotes or teachings that guide you. It could be a place where you keep your most cherished memories of love and connection, or a quiet garden where you go to remember what truly matters. Everyone's citadel is unique. The key is that it is a space devoid of external opinions, comparisons, and fears. It is a room where you are completely yourself, answerable only to your own reason and virtue. By consciously designing this mental sanctuary, you give yourself a refuge that you can visit anytime, ensuring that you never lose your center, no matter how strong the storm rages outside. Try skipping a meal or taking a colder shower tomorrow. I know it sounds counterintuitive. Why would anyone willingly choose discomfort when modern life is designed to eliminate it? This is the provocative heart of our eighth shift, a practice the Stoics called voluntary discomfort. It's the deliberate and conscious decision to embrace slight hardships, not as a form of self-punishment, but as a form of training. Think of it as emotional and psychological weightlifting. You wouldn't expect to walk into a gym and lift the heaviest weight on your first day. You start lighter, building strength gradually. In the same way, by voluntarily choosing small, manageable discomforts, you are strengthening your resilience muscle so that when life inevitably throws a heavier weight at you, a real loss, a genuine hardship, you are already strong enough to carry it without collapsing. The Roman philosopher Seneca was a powerful advocate for this practice. He advised periodically living as if you were poor, even if you were wealthy. He wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" This exercise wasn't about embracing misery. It was about conducting a fearless inventory of your own dependencies. By voluntarily experiencing a smaller version of what you fear, poverty, cold, hunger, obscurity, you perform a kind of alchemy on that fear. You transform it from a terrifying, unknown monster into a familiar, manageable reality. You prove to yourself through direct experience that you can endure it. You discover that your baseline well-being isn't nearly as fragile as you assumed. The comfort you lose is external and temporary. The confidence you gain is internal and permanent. This ancient wisdom finds a powerful echo in many modern movements. The entire philosophy of minimalism, for instance, is a form of voluntary discomfort. It's the conscious choice to own fewer possessions, to live in a smaller space, to reduce clutter and complexity. Why do people do this? Not because they hate nice things, but because they have discovered that by voluntarily reducing their dependence on external objects, they increase their internal sense of freedom and peace. They are immunizing themselves against the fear of losing it all. Similarly, the popularity of ice baths, intense fitness challenges, and digital detoxes all point to a deep, innate understanding that we need to be tested to feel strong. We crave the confidence that comes from knowing we can handle more than we think we can. So the challenge is simple but profound. This week, I want you to consciously choose one small comfort to voluntarily give up. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Maybe it's that second cup of coffee in the afternoon, the habitual scroll through social media before bed, or the thermostat setting you automatically crank up. Perhaps it's taking the stairs instead of the elevator, or packing a simple lunch instead of ordering takeout. The specific act matters less than the intention behind it. As you do it, pay close attention to the initial urge of resistance, that little voice that says, "But I don't want to," acknowledge it, and then gently proceed anyway. In that small space between the urge and the action, you will find a tiny but significant victory of will over whim. You are not depriving yourself, you are empowering yourself. You are building your inner citadel, one chosen stone of resilience at a time. How will this current worry of yours appear when viewed from the edge of the solar system, or even a century from now? This is the essence of our ninth shift, a powerful Stoic mental exercise known as the view from above. It is a deliberate act of psychological zoom, a way of pulling the camera of your mind so far back that the dramas of your daily life are seen in their true cosmic proportion. This isn't about dismissing your problems as meaningless. It's about contextualizing them within the breathtaking vastness of time and space, a practice that instantly cultivates humility, patience, and a profound sense of scale that can dissolve anxiety and petty concerns. Marcus Aurelius, who carried the immense weight of an empire on his shoulders, constantly returned to this perspective to ground himself. He would write meditations to remind himself of his tiny place in the grand scheme, noting, "You can discard most of the junk that clutters your mind and clear out space by comprehending the scale of the world." He urged himself to look at the stars in their courses, to contemplate the infinite expanse of time both before and after his life, and to see his own brief existence as a mere fleeting moment. By doing this, he wasn't belittling his own life, but rather freeing himself from the ego's inflation, from the mistaken belief that his immediate problems were the center of the universe. This cosmic view is the ultimate antidote to self-importance and the anxieties it breeds. Let's make this practical. You're feeling a deep sense of frustration and injustice because a colleague took credit for your idea in a meeting. The feeling is hot, immediate, and all-consuming. Your heart is pounding, and you're already drafting a heated email in your mind. Now, activate the view from above. Close your eyes for just 10 seconds. First, zoom out from your desk. See your building, then your city from the sky. The cars like tiny ants moving along grids. Keep pulling back. See your country, then the entire planet. A beautiful blue and green marble hanging in the black void of space. Now, consider time. This meeting happened today. Where will it be in a week? A faint memory. In a year, utterly forgotten. In a century, you, the colleague, the building, the company, all will be dust recycled into the earth. From this vantage point, is that specific moment of professional slight truly large enough to command your entire emotional state? The event itself hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has been completely transformed. It has been placed within a container so large that it can no longer overwhelm you. This shift is a tool for regaining composure and clarity. It doesn't solve the problem for you. You may still need to have a calm, professional conversation with that colleague, but it ensures you approach that conversation from a place of empowered choice, not reactive anger. You are no longer a victim of a single event. You are a conscious participant in the vast flow of human existence, choosing how to act with dignity. The view from above shrinks our egos and our worries down to their proper size, allowing us to address challenges with grace rather than be consumed by them. So I invite you to try this right now. Bring to mind a current concern that feels heavy and significant. It might be a financial pressure, a relationship tension, or a worry about an upcoming event. Now take a deep breath and mentally apply the lens of cosmic perspective. Ask yourself, in the grand tapestry of the universe, across billions of years and light years of space, how truly significant is this? This isn't to minimize your experience, but to empower you within it. By seeing the smallness of the problem, you make room for the vastness of your own capacity to handle it with peace and wisdom. Nothing lasts forever, not pain, not pleasure, not life itself. This is not a pessimistic observation, but a simple, universal truth that forms the bedrock of our 10th shift in thinking. The Stoics weren't morbid, they were profoundly realistic. They understood that the very nature of the universe is change, a constant, flowing river of creation and dissolution. To stand on the bank of that river and demand that the water stop flowing is a recipe for endless suffering. Our fear of loss, our anxiety about the future, and our grief over the past are all rooted in a deep-seated resistance to this fundamental law of impermanence. To become emotionally untouchable is to make peace with this flow, to release our white-knuckled grip on the things we know, on some level, we were never meant to hold onto permanently. Marcus Aurelius meditated on this constantly, using it as a tonic for his own anxieties. He wrote, "Keep in mind that everything that exists is already fraying and decaying and changing to be dissolved or transmuted into its separate parts." In other words, everything is by nature made to die. He isn't trying to depress himself, he is performing a mental exercise in non-attachment. By consciously reminding himself that the object of his desire, the source of his worry, or the focus of his anger is already in a state of change, he loosens its emotional hold on him. This acceptance isn't a cold indifference. In fact, it creates the opposite, a more vibrant, poignant, and deep appreciation for the beauty of things precisely because they are temporary. You don't savor a beautiful sunset by wishing it would last forever. You savor it by fully immersing yourself in its fleeting glory, knowing it will be gone in minutes. This shift applies that same mindful appreciation to every aspect of your life. Think of the most reliable, solid thing in your life, perhaps your home, your career, or a long-standing relationship. Now view it through the lens of impermanence. Your home will one day be lived in by others, or perhaps fall into disrepair. Your career will evolve, change, or end. Even the strongest relationships are transformed by time, distance, and eventually death. This isn't a thought to fear, it's a thought to liberate you. When you fully internalize that nothing is permanent, you stop trying to build your happiness on a foundation of sand. You stop clinging so tightly to people, possessions, and status that you crush the very joy they offer. You begin to hold things lightly, like sand in an open palm. Clench your fist, and the sand is forced out through the gaps between your fingers. Keep your hand open, and you can appreciate the sand fully, even as the wind gradually carries it away. The Stoic practice is to keep your hand open. This shift directly attacks the root of so much of our anxiety, the desire for certainty and guarantee. We want to know that our health will hold, that our money is safe, that our loved ones will always be there. But life offers no such guarantees. The attempt to secure them is a battle against reality itself, and it's a battle we will always lose. Accepting impermanence means surrendering that futile fight. It means trading the exhausting quest for certainty for the profound peace that comes from knowing you can handle uncertainty. You don't know what will happen tomorrow, but you can trust in your own ability to respond with virtue and resilience, no matter what the river of change brings to your shore. So I want you to try a brief but powerful exercise in release. Bring to mind one thing you find yourself clinging to. It could be a physical object you're afraid of losing, a specific life circumstance you're desperate to maintain, or even a past version of yourself that you missed. Now close your eyes and visualize it. See it in your mind's eye in all its detail. Then, gently imagine opening your hands and letting it go. Watch it change, dissolve, or float away. Don't force a feeling, just observe the mental act of release. Notice what arises in you, perhaps a pang of fear, but also possibly a sense of lightness, a breath of freedom. This small practice isn't about giving up what you love. It's about loving it more wisely, without the fear of loss poisoning the joy of its presence. Without a moral compass, we're easily swayed by every wind of opinion, chasing the approval of others and drifting through life without a true sense of direction. This is where the 11th shift becomes our anchor in the chaos, the practice of defining your values with absolute clarity. The Stoics understood that a life lived without conscious principles is a life vulnerable to every external pressure, every fleeting trend, and every moment of doubt. Your values are not just nice ideas, they are the fundamental architecture of your character, the internal guideposts that allow you to navigate complex decisions with confidence and integrity, regardless of the noise around you. Epictetus, who placed immense importance on self-examination, gave us a simple yet powerful daily practice. He advised, "Let your guiding principles be the ones you are tested against as soon as you get out of bed. Let these be your preconceptions. I will meet with meddling, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." He wasn't being pessimistic, he was being prepared. By starting each day by consciously recalling your core values, you are essentially putting on a suit of armor. You are reminding yourself of who you are and what you stand for before the world has a chance to tell you who to be. This daily rehearsal of your principles ensures they are ready and accessible when you need them most, transforming them from abstract concepts into active tools for living. Consider the stark contrast between two people facing the same professional dilemma. One is driven primarily by a desire for external praise and promotion, When presented with an opportunity to cut corners or take credit for a colleague's work to get ahead, their decision is based on a calculation of reward and risk. They are adrift, their moral direction shifting with whatever current promises the most personal gain. The other individual has taken the time to define their values clearly. For them, integrity and fairness are non-negotiable pillars. When faced with the same tempting but unethical choice, their decision is instant and unwavering. The external reward holds no power because it conflicts with their internal compass. They might not get the immediate promotion, but they walk away with something far more valuable, their self-respect and an unshakable knowledge that they acted in alignment with their deepest self. The first person's emotional state is tied to the fickle opinions of others. The second enjoys a profound and self-generated peace. This clarity acts as a powerful filter for life's endless stream of decisions, big and small. It conserves your precious mental and emotional energy. You no longer have to deliberate endlessly over whether to gossip about a coworker if kindness is a core value. The path is clear. You don't agonize over whether to stand up for someone being treated unfairly if justice is a guiding principle. You simply act. Your values do the heavy lifting of decision-making for you, freeing you from the paralysis of ambiguity and the regret of choices made against your own grain. In a world constantly trying to sell you its version of success, your clearly defined values are your personal declaration of what truly matters. So let's make this practical right now. This is more than just a reflective prompt. It's an act of building your inner citadel. Pause the video if you need to. I want you to take out a piece of paper or open a note on your phone and physically write down your top 3 values. Not what you think they should be or what your family or culture has told you they are, but the principles that, when you live by them, make you feel whole, authentic, and at peace. Is it courage, honesty, compassion, curiosity, resilience? Get specific. Write them down. This simple act of definition is the first step in moving from being blown by the wind to becoming the unwavering tree that withstands it. Like a martial artist who expertly deflects a blow rather than absorbing its full force, the 12th shift teaches us to master the crucial space between what happens to us and how we engage with it. This is the profound difference between reaction and response, a distinction that lies at the very heart of Stoic self-discipline and emotional regulation. A reaction is immediate, often explosive, and driven by raw, untrained emotion. It is the verbal lash-out, the slammed door, the impulsive email sent in a white-hot rage. A response, however, is something entirely different. It is a chosen action born from a moment of pause, filtered through reason, and aligned with your deepest values. It is the conscious decision to not be a puppet whose strings are pulled by every external event, but to be the puppeteer who decides the next move with clarity and intention. The Roman philosopher Seneca, who wrote extensively on the corrosive nature of anger, understood this power of the pause better than almost anyone. He advised, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." This simple instruction is a psychological masterstroke. Seneca isn't telling us to never feel anger. He is acknowledging that the initial, fiery flash of emotion is often beyond our immediate control. What we can control with practice is what we do in the seconds and minutes that follow. By deliberately imposing a delay, even one as brief as counting slowly to 10, you break the automatic circuit between a triggering event and your explosive output. You create a buffer zone, a sacred space for your higher mind to intervene before your lower impulses take over and say or do something you will deeply regret. Imagine a common scenario at work. A colleague publicly criticizes your proposal in a meeting, calling your central idea unworkable. The immediate, reactive impulse is one of pure defensiveness. Your face flushes, your heart rate spikes, and you feel a sharp retort forming on your tongue, a retort designed to wound, to discredit, to win the point and save face. This is the reaction. It feels powerful in the moment, but it almost always damages relationships, clouds your judgment, and makes you look emotionally unstable. Now imagine applying the Stoic shift. You feel the exact same surge of anger and embarrassment, but instead of letting it fly, you consciously activate the pause. You take a slow, deep breath. You might even say, "I'd like to think about that point," and circle back. In that space you've created, your reason gets a chance to speak. It might ask, is there any truth, however small, to this criticism? What is my ultimate goal here? To win an argument or to create the best project? What is the most virtuous way to handle this? From that place of calm assessment, your response will be entirely different. It might be, "I appreciate the feedback. Can you help me understand your concerns better so we can improve it?" This approach de-escalates, builds respect, and actually leads to a better outcome. This practice transforms you from being at the mercy of your environment to being the author of your actions. It's the difference between a leaf blown about by every gust of wind and a deep-rooted tree that sways but remains firmly grounded. The pause is where your freedom truly lies. It's in that space that you reclaim your power from the person or event that triggered you, demonstrating that your emotional state is not their responsibility to manage, it is yours. So I want you to bring to mind one specific trigger in your own life. It could be a certain tone of voice your partner uses, a particular type of criticism from your boss, or even the chaos of commuting home in heavy traffic. Identify that moment where you consistently feel that jolt of reactive energy. Now make a pact with yourself. The next time that trigger is pulled, your only job is to create the pause. Don't worry about crafting the perfect response yet. Just master the space, take the breath, count to 10, excuse yourself for a glass of water, break the automatic cycle. In that simple, deliberate act of hesitation, you are building the foundational skill of the emotionally untouchable, the ability to respond with wisdom instead of reacting with wounding. What if life isn't happening to you, but for you? This is the powerful reframe at the heart of our 13th shift. A fundamental reorientation that transforms us from passive victims of circumstance into active students of experience. The Stoics didn't believe in random, meaningless suffering. Instead, they saw every single event, especially the difficult, painful, and unexpected ones, as a form of personalized curriculum designed by life itself to teach us exactly what we need to learn to become stronger, wiser, and more virtuous. This mindset shift is the ultimate alchemy. It turns the lead of hardship into the gold of character, ensuring that no experience, no matter how challenging, is ever wasted. Marcus Aurelius, who faced relentless political intrigue, constant war, and profound personal loss, constantly returned to this idea to find strength. He wrote in his Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." But he also offered a more specific insight for this practice, noting, "So you were born to feel nice." Instead of doing things and experiencing them, don't you see the plants, the birds, the ants and spiders and bees going about their individual tasks, putting the world in order as best they can? And you're not willing to do your job as a human being. For him, our job is to engage with everything life offers and extract its value. He believed that our difficulties don't obscure our strengths, they reveal them. A calm sea never made a skilled sailor, and a life without obstacles would never reveal the depth of our own resilience, patience, or courage. The challenge itself is the training ground. Consider a powerful, personal example of this principle in action. Imagine a dedicated professional who pours their heart and soul into a project for months. only to have it fail spectacularly upon launch. The initial, raw reaction is one of crushing defeat, embarrassment, and a profound sense of failure. It feels like a verdict on their talent and worth. This is the happening to me perspective. Now apply the Stoic shift. This individual steps back and asks the new question: how is this happening for me? What is this experience trying to teach? Upon reflection, they might realize that the failure revealed a critical blind spot in their planning process, teaching them an invaluable lesson in preparation they would have never learned through success. It might have humbled them, sanding down the sharp edges of their ego and making them a more collaborative and open-minded team player in the future. Perhaps it even freed them from a career path that was misaligned with their true passions, forcing a redirection toward something far more fulfilling. The event itself remains a failure, but its meaning has been completely transformed from a stop sign to a signpost. This approach doesn't mean we pretend the pain isn't real. Stoicism isn't spiritual bypassing. It's okay to feel the sting of a rejection, the grief of a loss, or the frustration of a setback. The practice is to move through that initial emotion and then, once the dust has settled, to put on your archaeologist's hat and begin carefully sifting through the experience for artifacts of wisdom. Every single event contains data. Your job is to be a curious and non-judgmental scientist of your own life, collecting that data to inform your future growth. So I want you to try this excavation right now. Bring to mind a recent challenge, a friction point from your week. It doesn't have to be a monumental life event. It could be a frustrating argument, a missed deadline, or a plan that fell apart. Now, instead of replaying the frustration, ask yourself these three questions. First, what did this experience reveal about my current strengths or weaknesses? Second, how might this difficulty actually protect me or redirect me toward a better path? And third, what one specific lesson can I carry forward from this to apply tomorrow? The simple act of searching for the lesson changes your entire relationship with adversity. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this here to teach me?" This shift alone can make you emotionally untouchable because it means you can never truly be defeated, only educated. Everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. This simple, profound truth is the gateway to our 14th shift, a practice that has the power to dissolve interpersonal conflict and drain the poison of anger from our daily interactions. The Stoics proposed a radical idea that the vast majority of hurtful actions committed by others are not the result of calculated evil, but of profound ignorance or error. When someone acts rudely, critically, or unfairly, it is far more likely that they are misguided, confused, or in pain themselves than that they are a villain deliberately targeting you. This shift in interpretation is not about making excuses for bad behavior. It's about protecting your own peace by refusing to take that behavior personally, and in doing so, opening the door to genuine compassion. Marcus Aurelius, who dealt with countless senators, advisors, and citizens whose actions could have easily provoked his rage, constantly reminded himself of this principle. He wrote in his private journal, "When people injure you, ask yourself what good or harm they thought would come of it. If you understand that, you'll feel sympathy rather than outrage or anger." He is instructing himself to perform an act of empathetic detective work. Instead of reacting to the injury itself, he pauses to investigate the why behind it. He understood that a person who acts from a place of mistaken belief, fear, or unresolved pain is not a monster to be fought, but a confused human being to be understood, or at the very least calmly endured. This perspective doesn't mean you become a doormat. It means you stop allowing another person's internal chaos to dictate your internal weather. Let's bring this to life with a scenario we've all faced. You're in a coffee shop, finally finding a moment of quiet when a stranger bumps your table sharply without an apology, spilling your drink and barely breaking stride. The immediate, automatic judgment is one of personal offense. How incredibly rude, what a selfish person, they did that on purpose. This story you tell yourself ignites a flash of anger, ruining your peaceful mood and maybe even your next hour. Now apply the Stoic shift. Instead of landing on that judgment, you choose a different hypothesis. You tell yourself, that person is fighting a battle I know nothing about. Perhaps they just received a devastating phone call and are in a tearful daze, blind to their surroundings. Maybe they are rushing to a sick child or a struggling parent, their mind completely occupied by fear. They might even be suffering from chronic pain or a visual impairment that affects their coordination. The action, the spilled coffee, remains the same. But the story you attach to it transforms it from a personal affront into a neutral or even sad event. Your emotional response follows suit, shifting from anger to a moment of quiet sympathy. You might even feel a pang of concern for whatever struggle they are carrying. You wipe up the spill, order another drink, and your peace remains intact. This practice is a superpower in a world filled with friction. It applies to the colleague who sends a terse email, the family member who makes a cutting remark, the driver who honks aggressively. In every case, you have a choice. You can choose the story that paints them as an antagonist in your personal drama, a story that guarantees you will feel like a victim. Or you can choose the story that sees them as a flawed, struggling human being, likely acting out of their own pain or ignorance. The second story is not only more often true, but it is also the one that grants you freedom. It allows you to respond with calm detachment or even kindness, rather than react with matching venom. You break the cycle of conflict, and you keep your own soul clean. So I invite you to conduct a small experiment in emotional alchemy. Think back on a recent moment of interpersonal friction, a time when someone's words or actions genuinely annoyed or hurt you. Now replay the event in your mind, but this time consciously change the narrative. Actively assume that their actions stemmed from ignorance, error, or personal pain, not from malice directed at you. What new feelings arise? Does the event feel lighter, less personal? Does your anger soften into something more like curiosity or pity? This isn't about absolving others of responsibility for their actions. It's about absolving yourself of the burden of taking those actions to heart. When you master this shift, you become truly untouchable because you realize that most of the arrows shot in your direction were never aimed at you in the first place. They were just shot blindly by someone lost in their own dark woods. Unlimited desires create unlimited slavery. This stark and sobering contrast lies at the heart of our 15th shift, a fundamental Stoic practice that redefines the very meaning of freedom. We often believe that freedom is the ability to acquire everything we want and avoid everything we dislike. But the Stoics, particularly the former slave Epictetus, turned this notion completely on its head. He argued that true freedom is not the satisfaction of every desire, but liberation from the tyranny of those desires in the first place. Every craving for a newer car, a higher status, or a more perfect relationship, and every desperate aversion to criticism, discomfort, or lack, these are not expressions of freedom. They are the chains that bind us. They hand over the keys to our emotional state to external objects and events, ensuring we remain permanent hostages to fortune. Inner freedom, therefore, is born from the conscious and deliberate work of limiting what we want and what we fear. Epictetus, who knew more about external slavery than most, became a master of internal freedom through this exact principle. He taught that the essence of philosophy is to understand what is in our power and what is not, and then to align our desires and aversions accordingly. His most famous teaching on this is utterly transformative. Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it. And again, he said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." This is the practical application of the dichotomy of control. We can only control our own judgments and choices. Therefore, to desire something outside that control, like universal approval or guaranteed success, is to invite certain disappointment. To be averse to something outside our control, like aging or the opinions of others, is to guarantee anxiety. The path to tranquility is to want only what you can actually achieve, to act with virtue, to think with reason, and to judge with clarity. Consider the modern stress of chasing trends, whether in technology, fashion, or even lifestyle. A new smartphone is released with a slightly better camera. The desire is ignited. You don't need it, but you feel you must have it to be happy, to be current, to be accepted. This desire creates a subtle but constant low-grade anxiety, a feeling of lack and incompletion until the object is obtained. You then work extra hours, or you feel a pang of envy seeing someone else with it, or you simply waste mental energy obsessing over it. Once you finally acquire it, the satisfaction is fleeting, lasting only until the next model is announced and the cycle of desire begins anew. This is the slavery of unlimited wanting. Now, contrast this with the Stoic alternative, contentment with the basics. Your current phone makes calls, sends messages, and accesses information. It is functionally sufficient. By consciously limiting the desire for the newer model, you break the cycle. The energy you once spent on craving is now available for meaningful pursuits. The anxiety of comparison evaporates. You experience the profound contentment of knowing that your peace does not depend on any external object. This is not settling. It is a strategic declaration of independence. This practice extends far beyond material goods to our deepest aversions. We often have an intense aversion to being alone, to feeling bored, or to experiencing any form of physical discomfort. We fill every silent moment with distraction. We overschedule our lives to avoid stillness, and we go to great lengths to ensure we are never too hot, too cold, or too hungry. In doing so, we make ourselves incredibly fragile. Our ability to be peaceful becomes dependent on a perfect and impossible set of external conditions. The Stoic practice of limiting aversions means becoming comfortable with discomfort. It means learning to sit in silence without needing to reach for a phone. It means accepting a minor inconvenience without it ruining your mood. By reducing what you are averse to, you dramatically expand the range of circumstances under which you can remain calm and free. So let's bring this into your immediate reality. I want you to take a quiet moment for an honest inventory. Look at the landscape of your wants and fears. Identify one specific desire that, upon reflection, feels more like a chain than a genuine source of joy. It might be the desire for a particular luxury item, the craving for a specific person's approval, or the wish for a different set of life circumstances. Now consider what it would feel like to consciously reduce the intensity of that desire. Not to abandon ambition or cease striving for improvement, but to loosen its emotional grip on you. What if you could want it without needing it to be happy? This small act of mental moderation is not a loss, it is a profound gain. It is the reclaiming of a piece of your soul that you had mortgaged to an external outcome. Every desire you limit is a chain you break, moving you one step closer to the unshakable freedom of wanting only what you can truly control, your own character and your own choices. Where are your thoughts right now? Are they replaying an awkward conversation from yesterday, or perhaps anxiously rehearsing a meeting that's still days away? We spend so much of our lives anywhere but here, mentally time traveling to past regrets or future worries, while the only moment we ever actually possess, the present, slips by unnoticed. This brings us to our 16th shift, a deceptively simple yet profoundly transformative practice, embracing the present moment. For the Stoics, this wasn't just a nice idea, it was a fundamental point of power. The past is already written, immutable and gone. The future is a realm of uncertainty, not yet born. The only reality we can ever truly experience, influence, or find peace within is the eternal now. This is the only time we can act, the only time we can think, and the only time we can truly live. Marcus Aurelius, amidst the immense pressures of leading an empire, constantly anchored himself in this truth. He offered a powerful reframe for our relationship with time, writing, "Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present." And in perhaps an even more vivid image, he counseled himself to approach each day as if it were a separate life. Think about the weight of that idea. It's an invitation to stop seeing your life as one long, continuous struggle, and instead to view each sunrise as the beginning of a brand new, self-contained existence. The mistakes of yesterday's life are over. The anxieties about tomorrow's life are not yet relevant. Your entire purpose, your entire duty, is to live this day, this single life, with as much virtue, focus, and presence as you can muster. This perspective is the ultimate liberation from the burdens of yesterday and the fears of tomorrow. Let's make this tangible with a practice you can try right after this video. Choose a simple, everyday activity, something you normally do on autopilot. It could be drinking your morning coffee, walking to your car, or even washing the dishes. Now, for the duration of that activity, commit to being fully there. If you choose to drink a cup of tea, engage every single sense. Feel the warmth of the mug in your hands, noticing its texture and weight. Watch the subtle steam rising in delicate curls. Bring the cup to your nose and inhale the aroma deeply. When you take a sip, actually taste it, note its flavor, its temperature, the sensation as you swallow. Your mind will inevitably try to wander, pulling you back to a work email or a weekend plan. Gently, without judgment, guide it back to the tea, to the steam. To the warmth. This is not a trivial exercise. It is a micro-training in reclaiming your attention from the clutches of time and placing it firmly in the only reality that exists. You are not just drinking tea, you are practicing the art of being alive. This Stoic focus on the present is deeply tied to the concept of duty. They believed our primary job is to perform the task immediately in front of us with excellence, no matter how small or mundane it may seem. A writer's duty is to write the best next sentence. A parent's duty is to be fully present for the child in front of them. A craftsman's duty is to make the perfect next cut. By funneling all of your energy and attention into the current action, you not only perform it better, but you also starve the anxieties of the future and the regrets of the past of the mental energy they need to thrive. You discover a profound sense of flow and engagement that makes even the simplest task feel meaningful. Peace is not found in completing every item on a to-do list for some future day. It is found in the quality of attention you bring to the one item you are doing right now. So I have a direct and immediate challenge for you. Sometime today, I want you to carve out just 5 minutes. It doesn't matter how busy you are, 5 minutes is available to everyone. During those 5 minutes, your only task is to be completely and utterly present. You don't need to sit in a special meditation posture. You can do this while looking out a window, while feeling your feet on the ground during a short walk, or even while listening to the sounds around you. when your mind drifts, and it will gently return it to the sensations of the present. Notice the air on your skin, the sounds in the room, the rhythm of your breath. In these small, collected moments of presence, you are doing far more than just taking a break. You are building a neurological pathway back to yourself. You are strengthening your ability to disengage from the mental time machine and plant your feet firmly in the now, which is the only place where life actually happens and the only place where you can ever truly be emotionally untouchable. Under the skin, we all fear, hope, and strive. This simple, unifying truth is the foundation of our 17th shift, a perspective that has the power to dissolve the artificial barriers of ego that separate us and generate so much unnecessary conflict in our lives. The Stoics possessed a radical view of common humanity, seeing past the superficial distinctions of wealth, status, nationality, and belief to recognize a shared core in every person, the capacity for reason. They believed that this shared spark of rationality makes us all members of a single, global community, a brotherhood of beings who are all, in our own ways, navigating the complexities of life. To see others as equals is not to ignore their flaws or pretend everyone is the same. It is to acknowledge their fundamental worth and their shared journey, an acknowledgement that automatically diminishes our own tendencies toward jealousy, pride, and a lonely sense of alienation. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in the history of the world, constantly humbled himself with this thought. He wrote in his private meditations, "A branch cut off from the adjacent branch must of necessity be cut off from the whole tree." So too a human being separated from another has fallen off from the whole community. And he followed this with an even more direct instruction to himself. You should bear in mind that the whole universe is one living being, possessing one substance and one soul, and all things are the workings of one intelligence, and that all are intertwined with one another, and thus together form one unity. For an emperor, this was a staggering level of empathy. He wasn't seeing citizens as subjects or soldiers as pawns. He was seeing them as interconnected parts of a single organism, each one essential to the health of the whole. This worldview leaves no room for arrogance or a sense of superiority. If we are all leaves on the same great tree, then no leaf is inherently more valuable than another. Each contributes to the life of the whole in its own necessary way. Imagine applying this shift to a potent source of modern stress, professional competition. You have a colleague who seems to be everything you're not, effortlessly charismatic, consistently praised by leadership, and always first in line for the choicest projects. The default, ego-driven response is to see them as a rival, an other, an obstacle on your own path to success. This perspective breeds jealousy, resentment, and a corrosive sense of comparison that poisons your own workday. Now apply the Stoic lens. See this person not as a rival, but as a fellow traveler. They, just like you, are striving. They fear failure. They hope for recognition. They want to provide for their family and find meaning in their work. They are exercising their reason, just as you are, to navigate their career. This shift doesn't mean you stop being ambitious or trying to succeed. It means you compete with integrity and respect, not with animosity. You might even find opportunities for collaboration, recognizing that their strengths could complement your own. The dynamic transforms from a tense me versus you standoff into a more compassionate and strategic understanding of two people simply playing their parts within the same larger system. This practice extends far beyond the office to every form of social friction. It applies to the political divide that seems so vast, where it's easy to demonize those on the other side. They are not monsters, they are human beings using their reason as best they can, guided by different experiences and information, ultimately hoping for a better world in their own way. It applies to the stranger who irritates you with their different customs or loud opinions. They are a fellow traveler on this planet, shaped by a different set of circumstances, but united with you by the same fundamental human desires for safety, belonging, and happiness. When you consciously look for the common ground instead of focusing on the differences, you perform an act of radical peacemaking, first within your own mind, and then potentially in the world outside. You stop creating enemies where none need exist, so I want to offer you a simple but profound exercise in reperception. Bring to mind one person in your life whom you consistently view as an other. This might be a political opponent, a difficult family member, a professional rival, or simply someone whose personality grates on yours. Now, instead of focusing on what separates you, I want you to actively search for 3 things you likely share. Do you both love your children? Do you both get frustrated in traffic? Do you both hope to be happy and avoid pain? Do you both worry about the future? In finding that common ground, you aren't condoning their behavior or abandoning your own principles. You are simply acknowledging their humanity. This small act of recognition is a powerful step toward disarming your own judgment and finding a more peaceful, emotionally untouchable stance in a world of beautifully diverse but ultimately equal human beings. What if you woke up tomorrow with only the things you took the time to sincerely thank today? This thought experiment reveals the incredible power of our 18th shift, a practice so simple it's often overlooked, yet so profound it can rewire your entire experience of life, the daily cultivation of gratitude. For the Stoics, gratitude wasn't just a polite sentiment or a seasonal holiday tradition. It was a form of deep philosophical realism and a powerful antidote to the restless, dissatisfied mind that constantly craves what it doesn't have. It is the conscious recognition that life, in this very moment, is already offering you a multitude of gifts, and that true wealth lies not in acquiring more, but in fully appreciating what is already yours. The Roman philosopher Seneca, in his beautiful letters to his friend Lucilius, placed immense importance on this practice. He wrote, "We should count our blessings, not our burdens." We should say, I have been allowed to live this day. I am alive. I can see the sun and the moon. I can run my eyes over this page. My lungs can draw breath and my mind can think. Notice what Seneca is doing here. He isn't listing grand achievements or material windfalls. He is drawing attention to the most fundamental, often invisible, miracles of existence, the gift of sight, the ability to think, the simple fact of being alive for another day. The Stoic practice of gratitude is this exact act of shifting your focus from the distant horizon of what you lack to the rich ground of what is already present and sustaining you. It is a direct counterattack on the human tendency toward hedonic adaptation, that psychological phenomenon where we quickly get used to new comforts and then take them for granted, forever chasing the next thing to temporarily satisfy us. The most effective way to build this mental muscle is through a simple, consistent ritual. Many people find immense value in keeping a gratitude journal. This doesn't need to be a lengthy, poetic endeavor. Each evening, just before bed, take 2 minutes to write down 3 specific things you were grateful for that day. The key is in the specificity. Don't just write "my family," write "the way my daughter laughed uncontrollably at dinner." Don't write "my job," write "the feeling of accomplishment after finally solving that stubborn problem at work." This act of specific recollection forces your mind to scan the past 24 hours not for its failures and irritations, but for its small victories and hidden beauties. It actively trains your brain like a scout looking for positives instead of a guard looking for threats. For those who prefer a less formal approach, the same practice can be done mentally during a quiet moment, perhaps while commuting or washing dishes. The format matters less than the intentionality behind it, the deliberate decision to curate the highlights of your day and offer them a moment of your full attention. This practice works because it fundamentally alters your baseline of comparison. A mind left to its own devices will naturally compare itself to those who have more, fostering envy and a sense of lack. The disciplined practice of gratitude consciously reverses that comparison. It encourages you to compare your situation to those who have far less, or to imagine your own life without its current comforts. That first sip of coffee in the morning becomes a moment of luxury when you consider those who cannot afford it. The reliable roof over your head becomes a palace when you think of those without shelter. The health you enjoy today becomes a treasure when you remember it is not guaranteed. This isn't about feeling guilty for your good fortune, it's about feeling awed by it. It transforms ordinary life from a series of demands into a continuous experience of receiving. So, right now, in this very moment, I want you to pause and perform this shift. Don't just think about it, actually name 3 things you are grateful for. It could be the device you're using to hear this message, the comfort of the chair you're sitting in, or simply the curiosity and desire for growth that led you to this video. Feel the subtle but real shift in your emotional state as you do. That is the birth of contentment, not because your circumstances have changed, but because your perception of them has. Emotions are signals, not commanders. They are the raw data of our inner world, providing crucial information about our environment and our values, but they were never meant to be the sole pilot of our lives. This brings us to our 19th shift, a cornerstone of Stoic practice that re-establishes the proper hierarchy within our own minds, using reason over emotion as our primary guide for action. The Stoics did not advocate for a cold, emotionless existence. Rather, they sought to cultivate a state where our logical, wiser self remains at the helm, calmly interpreting the signals our emotions send and then choosing a course of action that aligns with our deepest values, not our most fleeting impulses. It is the difference between being a ship tossed about by every wave of feeling and being a skilled captain who uses the wind of emotion to navigate, but who never relinquishes control of the wheel. Epictetus, who focused intensely on the practical application of philosophy, offered a perfect metaphor for this dynamic. He taught that we should use our learned principles as a helm to steer through the turbulent seas of passion. Imagine your emotions as a powerful storm. The wind howls, the waves crash, and the rain obscures your vision. In the midst of this chaos, if you panic and let go of the wheel, you will be driven onto the rocks. But if you keep a firm, steady hand on the helm, your reason, you can use the very force of the storm to keep you on course, or at the very least to keep you afloat until the weather clears. Your reason is that helm. It is the part of you that can observe the storm of anger, acknowledge the fog of sadness, or feel the pull of desire without being capsized by them. It allows you to say, I feel this powerful urge, but I will not act on it until I have determined if it is wise. Consider a practical, modern example of this shift in action. You receive a job offer from a competing company. It comes with a significant pay raise, a flashy title, and the immediate ego boost of being wanted. The initial emotional response is a surge of excitement, pride, and perhaps a desire to immediately accept it as validation of your worth. This is the signal. It feels good to be valued, but if you let that feeling become the commander, you might hastily sign the contract, only to discover later that the company culture is toxic. The role has no real growth potential, and the demanding hours will devastate your family life. Now apply the Stoic shift. You feel the exact same excitement, but you consciously engage your reason as the helm. You create a pros and cons list, not just financially, but aligned with your core values. You ask reasoned questions. Does this role allow me to live with integrity? Will it provide the time I value with my children? Does the mission of this company align with my own? Is this a step toward my long-term vision or just a shiny distraction? By weighing the decision through the lens of reason and virtue, you might still accept the offer, but you will do so for thoughtful, lasting reasons, not a temporary emotional high. Or you might gracefully decline, realizing that the higher salary is not worth the cost to your peace and principles. This practice transforms you from a passive passenger on a roller coaster of feelings into an active author of your life story. It grants you the power to insert a vital pause between a triggering event and your final response, creating space for wisdom to enter the conversation. It's the difference between sending a scathing email in a fit of rage and sleeping on it, only to realize in the calm light of morning that a simple, clarifying question would have resolved the entire issue. Your emotions are not your enemies, they are valuable messengers, but it is your reason that must decide what the message means and what, if anything, needs to be done about it. Take a moment to look back on your own recent history. Can you recall a specific instance where a powerful emotion, perhaps anger, fear, or intense desire, took full command of the ship? Where you acted on impulse and later regretted the outcome? Now replay that event in your mind, but this time, imagine your reasoned self stepping forward to take the helm. What questions would that calmer, wiser version of you have asked before acting? What different choices might that perspective have revealed? This act of reflection isn't about self-judgment. It's about training your mind to recognize that you always have a choice. You can listen to the emotional signal without handing it the controls, ensuring that your actions are directed by your deepest wisdom, not your most temporary storms. Some doors in life are permanently closed, and kicking them only bruises your own foot. This isn't a call to passive surrender, but a strategic recognition of reality that lies at the heart of our 20th shift, the profound practice of accepting what cannot be changed. This timeless wisdom, echoed in the well-known Serenity Prayer, is pure, practical Stoicism. It is the conscious decision to stop wasting your precious energy, your emotional resources, and your finite time on fighting battles against immovable objects. Instead, you redirect all that power toward the one arena where you can actually make a difference, your own responses, your own actions, and your own inner world. Acceptance in the Stoic sense is not defeat, it is the ultimate act of intelligent conservation. This practice is about aligning yourself with what the Stoics called nature's plan or fate. They saw the universe as a rational, interconnected whole, and to struggle against its fundamental rules was seen as the height of foolishness, like a fish trying to fly or a bird trying to breathe underwater. The philosopher Epictetus, who began his life as a slave and understood powerlessness intimately, framed this with his characteristic clarity. He taught, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens, then you will be happy." This is perhaps one of the most challenging yet liberating ideas in all of Stoicism. It invites us to move beyond merely tolerating inevitabilities and toward a genuine willingness to engage with reality exactly as it is presented to us. Your happiness, Epictetus argues, doesn't depend on reality conforming to your wishes, but on your wishes aligning themselves with reality. We encounter these closed doors every single day, often in ways that trigger our resistance. Consider the natural and universal process of aging. We live in a culture that often treats aging as a problem to be solved, an enemy to be fought with creams, procedures, and denial. The Stoic shift would be to accept the inevitable truth that our bodies will change, our hair will gray, and our energy levels will shift. This acceptance isn't about giving up on health, it's about releasing the exhausting battle against a natural process. It allows you to appreciate the wisdom and experience that comes with time rather than mourning the loss of youth. Similarly, think about the weather. You plan a perfect outdoor picnic for weeks and it rains. You can spend the day fuming at the sky, complaining about the meteorologist, and letting your disappointment ruin the entire experience, or you can accept the rain. You can move the picnic indoors, put on some music, and enjoy the cozy atmosphere, thus conserving your energy for joy rather than wasting it on a futile protest against the clouds. Perhaps the most challenging arena for this practice is other people's choices and opinions. You cannot control what your family members believe, how your colleague behaves, or whether a stranger approves of you. You can state your case, you can set boundaries, and you can act with integrity, but you cannot force a change in someone else's heart or mind. When you truly accept this, you free yourself from an enormous amount of emotional drama. You stop trying to convince the unconvincable, and you cease seeking validation from those who are unwilling or unable to give it. This acceptance allows you to invest your energy in your own growth and in relationships with people who are already aligned with your values, rather than draining yourself in a constant campaign to change everyone around you. So I want you to bring a specific personal challenge into the light. What is the one unchangeable reality in your life right now that you find yourself constantly pushing against? Is it a physical limitation you've been dealt? Is it a past mistake that cannot be undone? Is it the political climate or the behavior of a particular person? Take an honest moment to identify it. Now, consider the mental and emotional energy you expend on this resistance, the worrying, the complaining, the mental arguments you rehearse. What if you could take that same energy and, instead of hurling it against this immovable wall, you gently set it down? What if you could simply acknowledge, this is the way it is, and then, with that energy now freed up, ask yourself the only truly productive question. Given that this reality is fixed, what is the wisest and most virtuous thing for me to do next? This shift from resistance to thoughtful response is where you will find not only peace, but a tremendous new reservoir of power for everything that truly matters. When was the last time you sat in complete silence with yourself? No podcast in your ears, no screen in front of your eyes, no distraction to pull you away from your own thoughts. In our hyper-connected world, true solitude has become a rare and almost radical act. We fill every spare moment with input, with noise, with the lives and opinions of others, often because we are quietly afraid of what we might find in the quiet. This brings us to our 21st shift, a practice the Stoics considered essential for wisdom, the deliberate pursuit of silence and solitude. This is not about loneliness or isolation. It is about strategic withdrawal from the external world to reconnect with your inner one, to nourish your inner life, and to remember who you are when no one is watching and nothing is demanding your attention. The Roman philosopher Seneca, a man who moved in the highest and most chaotic circles of power, was a powerful advocate for this daily retreat. In one of his letters, he wrote, "You must withdraw into yourself as much as you can. Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you are capable of improving. The process is mutual, for people learn while they teach." Notice that he doesn't say to abandon the world forever. He prescribes a temporary withdrawal, a regular appointment with yourself that acts as a counterbalance to the noise of society. He understood that constant external engagement without periods of inward reflection makes us fragile and dependent. Our sense of self becomes a mirror, merely reflecting the latest trend, the loudest opinion, or the most urgent notification. Solitude is the practice of turning that mirror into a window, allowing you to look inward and discover the resources that were there all along, independent of anyone else's validation. Consider what happens for many of us the moment we feel a pang of boredom or a slight unease. our hand instinctively reaches for the phone, seeking the dopamine hit of a new message or an updated feed. We have trained ourselves to be terrified of being alone with our own minds, but it is in that very space of unease that the most important work happens. Think of your mind as a glass of muddy water. Constant stimulation and interaction keep the water perpetually stirred up and cloudy. You can't see anything clearly. Only in stillness, when you set the glass down and let it be, does the sediment slowly settle to the bottom, leaving the water above it clear and transparent. Silence and solitude are the acts of setting the glass down. It is in this clarity that you gain true self-knowledge, that you can hear your own intuitions, and that you can process your experiences rather than just accumulating them. So let's make this practical. I am not suggesting you need to embark on a week-long silent retreat, though that can be powerful. The practice can begin in the smallest of ways. This evening, try turning off all your devices, the television, the phone, the computer, for just 1 single hour. Don't use the time to do another productive task. Simply sit in a chair, look out the window, perhaps take a slow walk without headphones. You will likely feel an initial itch of anxiety, a sense that you should be doing something. That feeling is the addiction to noise breaking. Observe it without judgment, then see what arises. You might find yourself replaying a conversation from the day, but with new insight. A creative solution to a problem you've been stuck on might bubble up from the silence, or you might simply sit with a feeling of sadness or joy that you've been too busy to fully acknowledge. This hour is not wasted time, it is invested time. It is an investment in the clarity and stability of your own mind, making you less reactive and more responsive to everything that happens when you plug back in. Therefore, I want to extend a direct and simple invitation to you. Before this day is over, consciously schedule just 5 minutes of deliberate solitude. It doesn't require a special room or any equipment. It simply requires your intention. Go outside and look at the sky for 5 minutes. Sit in your car before you go into the house. Close the bathroom door and just breathe. In that brief window, don't try to achieve anything. Your only task is to be present with yourself. Notice the quality of your own thoughts without trying to change them. This small daily practice is like a daily anchor dropped into the sea of your own soul, preventing you from being swept away by the endless currents of external demands and opinions. It is how you build the unshakable center that defines the emotionally untouchable. Character is who you are in the dark when the spotlight is off, the audience has gone home, and the only witness to your actions is your own conscience. This powerful idea cuts to the very core of our 20-second shift, which is about building a life of unwavering integrity, not for an award, not for a reputation, but simply because it is the right way to live. The Stoics believed that virtue is its own reward, and that the highest form of moral excellence is demonstrated precisely in those moments when no one is there to see it, when there is no external payoff, and when doing the wrong thing would be easier, more profitable, or completely undetectable. This is the ultimate test of your philosophy, not what you preach in public, but what you practice in absolute privacy. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this standard, writing in his private journal, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." And in another passage, he gets even more specific, advising himself to let your every deed and word and thought be that of a man who is prepared to depart this life at any moment. This is the Stoic conception of integrity, living with such consistent virtue that if your life were to be inspected without warning at any random moment, you would have nothing to hide and no reason for shame. It's about aligning your private actions with your public statements, ensuring there is no gap between who you appear to be and who you actually are. This internal consistency is what generates the deepest and most reliable form of self-respect, a quiet confidence that isn't reliant on anyone else's approval because it is built on the non-negotiable foundation of your own principles. Consider a modern, everyday scenario that tests this very principle. You're at a self-checkout kiosk in a busy grocery store. You're scanning your items and you come across a bundle of expensive produce that doesn't have a barcode. You could easily pretend it's a cheaper item, like a simple potato, and pay a fraction of the price. No one is watching over your shoulder. The camera angle is poor. There is zero chance of getting caught. The temptation is purely financial, a small victory for your wallet. Now, the person of weak character, whose integrity is contingent on external enforcement, sees this as a golden opportunity. But the person who has internalized the Stoic shift pauses. They aren't refraining from cheating because they fear getting caught. They are refraining because they know that the act itself would diminish them. They would have to carry the knowledge that they are the kind of person who steals, even if it's just from a massive, faceless corporation. The few dollars saved are not worth the cost to their self-conception. So they flag down an employee, wait patiently for the correct code, and pay the full price. They walk out of the store with less money but infinitely more wealth in their character. This commitment extends far beyond avoiding wrongdoing. It also means proactively doing the right thing when it's inconvenient. It's about returning the overpaid change from a flustered cashier, reporting a minor fender bender in an empty parking lot, or giving honest feedback to a colleague even when a white lie would be easier. Each of these small choices is a brick in the construction of your inner citadel. With every act of integrity, you strengthen the walls of your self-trust. You know with absolute certainty that you can rely on yourself to do what is right, not what is easy. This creates a profound sense of inner stability. You are no longer buffeted by the winds of opportunity or fear. You are guided by the fixed star of your own virtue. I want you to take a quiet moment now to look inward. Bring to mind a recent choice you made when you were alone, a moment that presented a subtle moral crossroad. It doesn't have to be a grand, dramatic event. Perhaps it was a time you could have taken credit for someone else's idea in a remote work chat, or a moment you considered cutting a corner on a personal project because no one would ever know the difference. Reflect honestly on that decision. Did you act in a way that aligns with your deepest values? If you did, take a second to feel the genuine pride that comes from that self-trust, not an egotistical pride, but the quiet satisfaction of self-respect. If you didn't, that's okay. The practice isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. Simply acknowledge the misstep without self-flagellation, and make a quiet commitment to your future self that the next time you are in the dark, you will choose the light. Criticism is often a gift wrapped in sandpaper, a valuable insight delivered in such a rough, uncomfortable package that our immediate instinct is to throw the whole thing away without ever looking inside. This brings us to our 23rd shift, a practice that can completely transform your relationship with one of life's most common sources of emotional turmoil. Learning to see criticism not as a personal attack, but as neutral data. The Stoic approach to critique is not about developing a thick skin in the sense of becoming numb or defensive. It's about developing a discerning mind, one that can calmly sift through any feedback, no matter how poorly delivered, to extract the useful nuggets of truth while letting the rest, the malice, the error, the unnecessary harshness fall harmlessly away. The great teacher Epictetus, who was no stranger to harsh judgment, gave us the perfect framework for this. He advised, if someone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, he was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone. This is a masterclass in emotional alchemy. Instead of reacting with defensiveness or hurt, Epictetus suggests a response of almost humorous humility. He reframes the criticism not as an injury, but as a partial and incomplete report, a list that, while perhaps accurate, is notably lacking in the many other flaws the critic could have mentioned. This mindset does two powerful things. First, it instantly defangs the personal sting by removing your ego from the center of the equation. Second, it opens your mind to the possibility that there might be a sliver of truth in the report, a data point you can use for your own self-improvement. Imagine a practical application of this shift in a modern work environment. You pour your heart into a project presentation, and afterward, a senior colleague pulls you aside. Instead of offering constructive feedback, they say, "That was a confusing mess. You completely failed to make your point, and it felt amateurish." The initial, raw reaction is one of sheer deflation. Your heart sinks, your face flushes, and you're flooded with a mix of shame and anger. This is the personal attack interpretation, and it will likely lead you to either avoid that colleague forever or spend the next week obsessively replaying the moment and defending yourself in your mind. Now apply the Stoic reframe. Your first job is to consciously separate the delivery from the data. The delivery was undeniably harsh and unhelpful. That is the sandpaper. Now look for the gift inside. Set aside the words mess, failed, and amateurish. What is the core data point? The presentation was confusing, and you did not successfully make your point. This is incredibly valuable information. It doesn't matter that it was delivered poorly. It is now a fact you can work with. You can ask yourself, was the structure unclear? Did I assume too much prior knowledge? Did I need a stronger executive summary? This shift allows you to walk away from that painful interaction, not with a wounded ego, but with a concrete item for your professional development checklist. The critic's poor communication skills become their problem, while the insight becomes your advantage. This practice requires you to become a detective of your own defensiveness. When you feel that familiar surge of anger or hurt in response to criticism, see it as a signal to pause and engage your reason. Ask yourself two simple questions. First, is this person criticizing me in good faith? Are they genuinely trying to help, or are they lashing out from their own place of pain or insecurity? If it's the latter, you can instantly dismiss the malicious packaging. Second, is there any truth here, however small, that I can use? You are not obligated to accept the entire critique, nor the harsh judgment that accompanies it. Your job is to mine for the single, usable ore. Perhaps 90% of the feedback is useless emotional projection, but the remaining 10% contains a diamond of truth that can make you significantly better at your job, your art, or your relationships. So I want you to try this act of emotional archaeology right now. Bring to mind a piece of criticism you've received recently, something that stung, and that you may have dismissed entirely because of its delivery. It could be from your boss, your partner, a parent, or even an online comment. Replay the words in your mind, and this time put on your data analyst's hat. Ignore the tone, ignore the insults, and ignore the exaggerations. Look coldly and objectively at the content. Can you find one single, specific, and actionable piece of information buried within the attack? Maybe the comment about your work being disorganized points to a real need for a better filing system. Maybe the complaint that you never listen highlights a moment you were distracted when someone needed you. Your task is not to accept the blame or the harsh judgment, but to accept the kernel of truth and decide what, if anything, you want to do with it. When you master this, you become truly untouchable, because you realize that even the most venomous critique has no power to harm you. It only has the power you grant it to teach you. You could leave life right now, let that determine what you do. This is the stark and liberating invitation of our 24th shift, a central Stoic practice known as Memento Mori, a Latin phrase that translates to remember you must die. Far from being a morbid or fearful obsession, this is a profound mental exercise designed to shock you into vivid, purposeful living. The Stoics saw the conscious awareness of our own inevitable death not as a reason for despair, but as the ultimate tool for creating clarity, urgency, and a deep, grateful appreciation for the time we are given. It is the lens that instantly clarifies what is trivial and what is truly essential, burning away the petty concerns and procrastination that so often clutter our days. Marcus Aurelius, who reflected on this more than perhaps any other Stoic, offered the perfect guiding principle. He wrote, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. He is not suggesting we live in a state of paranoia, but in a state of profound presence. If you genuinely internalize that today could be your last day, not in a fearful way, but in a factual way, how would it change the quality of your actions? Would you waste the morning arguing about politics online? Would you hold onto that grudge against a family member? Would you put off the meaningful conversation or the creative project you've been dreaming about? The awareness of death acts as a filter, straining out the noise and leaving only the signal of what genuinely matters. It confronts our deep-seated illusion of immortality, the comfortable assumption that we have an endless supply of tomorrows, which is the very thing that allows us to waste our todays. Consider how this shift operates in the practical reality of your daily life. You wake up and face a day filled with 100 small tasks, interruptions, and potential irritations. Without the Memento Mori lens, it's easy to get swept into the current of minor frustrations, the slow driver, the critical email, the spilled coffee. These events can dominate your emotional landscape, leaving you feeling stressed and drained by noon. Now apply the shift. At any moment, you can pause and touch the brief, fragile reality of your own existence. You can remind yourself, this breath, this heartbeat is not guaranteed. This day is a gift, not an entitlement. From that perspective, the slow driver becomes a minor inconvenience you can patiently endure. The critical email becomes a chance to practice grace under pressure. The spilled coffee is just a spilled coffee. The pettiness evaporates because you simply don't have the time for it. Your focus sharpens, pulling you toward the people and projects you love, toward the work that feels meaningful, toward the experience of being truly alive instead of just being busy. This practice is the ultimate antidote to procrastination, the thief of so many unlived lives. We delay our happiness, our passions, and our difficult conversations, waiting for the perfect moment that never arrives. Memento Mori annihilates that excuse. It tells us that the perfect moment is now, because now is all we can ever truly count on. It doesn't mean you quit your job to chase every whim, but it does mean you stop postponing joy. It means you send that message of appreciation today. You start that small step toward your goal today. You choose connection over being right, and you choose presence over distraction. You begin to live with a sense of gentle urgency, not a frantic panic, but a quiet determination to squeeze the marrow out of this ordinary, miraculous day. So I want to offer you a challenge that might just change everything. Close your eyes for just a moment, and I want you to truly, honestly consider this. If you received a certain diagnosis, and you knew with absolute certainty that you had 1 month left to live, what would you immediately stop doing? What would you immediately start doing? And more importantly, what is stopping you from making those changes right now? The answers to these questions are not a morbid fantasy. They are a precise map to your deepest values and your most authentic life. The things you would stop are the drains on your precious energy, The things you would start are the essence of your purpose. Memento Mori isn't about dying. It's about using the reality of death as a tool to strip life down to its beautiful essentials, so you can stop waiting to live and start living right now. We spend so much time managing our things, our schedules, and our digital lives that we can completely forget to actually live. This frantic busyness, this constant juggling of possessions and commitments, is a uniquely modern form of slavery. It drains our attention, scatters our focus, and leaves us feeling perpetually drained, always busy but never truly productive in what matters most. This brings us to our 25th shift, a powerful Stoic prescription for this modern malaise, the conscious and deliberate simplification of your life. For the Stoics, minimalism wasn't an aesthetic choice or a trendy lifestyle blog topic. It was a deep philosophical strategy for achieving inner freedom. By ruthlessly reducing the clutter and complexity in our external world, we create the mental and emotional space necessary to focus on the only thing that truly matters, the cultivation of our inner character and virtue. The Roman philosopher Seneca, a man of immense wealth who understood its pitfalls better than anyone, captured the essence of this idea with breathtaking clarity. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." For what does it matter how much a man has laid up in his safe or in his warehouse, how large are his flocks and how fat his dividends, if he covets his neighbor's property and reckons not his past gains but his hopes of gains to come? True wealth, in the Stoic view, has nothing to do with the size of your bank account or the contents of your garage. Wealth is a state of mind. It is the profound sense of enoughness that comes from wanting very little. When you constantly desire more, you are, by definition, impoverished because you are living in a state of perpetual lack. But when you simplify your wants, you instantly become rich because you already possess everything you truly need for contentment. Your peace is no longer held hostage by the next purchase, the next upgrade, or the next achievement. This philosophy translates into immensely practical action in our daily lives. The most accessible place to start is with our physical environment. Look around the room you're in right now. How many of the objects you see serve a clear purpose or bring you genuine, lasting joy? How many are merely relics of past aspirations, gifts from obligations, or clutter that demands constant cleaning, organizing, and mental energy just by being there? The practice of decluttering is not just about creating a tidy home. It is a form of mental hygiene. Every object you own owns a little piece of your attention. It requires upkeep, it takes up space, and it subconsciously whispers that you need to manage it. By letting go of the excess, the clothes you never wear, the gadgets you never use, the knick-knacks you don't love, you are not getting rid of your possessions, you are reclaiming your attention. You are freeing up cognitive bandwidth that can be redirected toward your relationships, your passions, and your inner growth. A simplified space creates a simplified mind, one that is less distracted and more capable of deep focus. But this shift extends far beyond mere physical stuff. We must also apply this same ruthless simplicity to our schedules and our digital consumption. How many of your weekly commitments are truly essential? How many are undertaken out of a vague sense of obligation, a fear of missing out, or a desire to appear busy and important? Every yes to an unnecessary meeting, every half-hearted social obligation, every subscription to a streaming service that just adds more noise is a no to your peace, your solitude, and your ability to engage deeply with the few things that truly matter. Simplifying your life means auditing your time with the same intensity you would audit your closet. It means learning to say no gracefully to the non-essential, so you can say a full-hearted yes to the essential. It means creating white space in your calendar for reflection, for spontaneity, and for simply being rather than constantly doing. This isn't about becoming lazy or unambitious. It's about becoming strategic, ensuring your precious energy is invested, not just spent. So I want you to make this shift tangible right now. Cast a critical eye over your life, your physical space, your weekly schedule, your digital subscriptions. Identify one single area that feels overly complex, crowded, or draining. Perhaps it's the stack of unread books on your nightstand and that silently accuses you every night. Maybe it's the recurring meeting that has long outlived its purpose but no one has questioned. It could be the constant barrage of notifications from apps that add more anxiety than value. Choose just one. What is one small, concrete step you could take this week to simplify it? Could you box up 5 books to donate? Could you suggest canceling that meeting or making it an email update instead? Could you turn off notifications for one app that steals your focus? This single act of simplification is a direct declaration of independence from the chaos of modern life. A quiet but powerful step toward the Stoic ideal of wanting little and living much. A tree doesn't grow in a day, and neither does character. This simple truth from nature reveals the essence of our 26th shift, the deliberate cultivation of patience. In a world of instant notifications, same-day delivery, and endless streaming, we have been conditioned to expect immediate results. And this conditioning has made us emotionally fragile when faced with the natural, unavoidable delays of life. The Stoics saw patience not as a passive waiting game, but as an active virtue, a form of strength that allows us to endure difficulties and delays without the self-inflicted suffering of frustration and agitation. It is the practice of aligning our internal rhythm with the external, often slower, pace of reality, trusting in process and natural timing rather than demanding instant gratification. The great teacher Epictetus, who focused intensely on the practical application of philosophy, placed immense value on this quality. While a direct quote naming patience as the greatest virtue is often attributed to him in spirit, his teachings consistently point to its foundational role. He taught that our disturbances arise not from events themselves, but from our judgments about them. Therefore, to judge a necessary delay as bad or unfair is to create our own turmoil. He advised his students to focus on what is within their control, their effort, their intention, their attitude, and to accept with equanimity the timing of the outcome, which is outside their control. This is the heart of Stoic patience, pouring your energy into the process you command, while releasing your attachment to the timeline you do not. It is the understanding that some things, mastering a skill, healing a wound, mending a relationship, building a business, require the one ingredient we cannot manufacture: time. Consider the modern agony of waiting in a long, slow-moving line at the grocery store. The immediate, untrained reaction is a symphony of sighs, eye rolls, and mental complaints. We check our phone repeatedly as if that could speed up the cashier. We tense our bodies, our breathing becomes shallow, and we allow this minor, unavoidable delay to completely hijack our peace. This is impatience in action, a futile protest against a reality we cannot change. Now apply the Stoic shift. You are in the same line, facing the same delay. But instead of judging it as an interruption of your important schedule, you simply accept it as the current reality. You control your response. You might use the time to practice a few moments of mindful breathing, observing the sensations of the air entering and leaving your body. You might choose to people watch with curiosity instead of irritation, or you might simply stand there, allowing your mind to rest in the pause rather than fighting against it. The line hasn't moved any faster, but your experience of it has been completely transformed from one of stress to one of peace. You haven't just waited, you have practiced patience. This virtue extends far beyond trivial cues to the most significant areas of our lives. Waiting for medical test results, for a promotion, for a loved one to change, for a creative project to find its audience, these are the true testing grounds for patience. In these moments, the Stoic practice is to focus relentlessly on the present action within your control. You cannot force the test results to arrive sooner, but you can control taking a walk, eating a nutritious meal, or calling a friend for support today. You cannot dictate when your boss will make a decision, but you can control the quality of the work you produce this afternoon. By anchoring yourself in the manageable actions of the present, you prevent your mind from catastrophizing about an uncertain future or agonizing over a slow-moving timeline. Patience in this light is a form of trust in the process, trust in your own ability to handle whatever comes, and trust that some things simply cannot and should not be rushed. I want you to bring a specific moment into clear focus. Think of one recurring situation in your life where you consistently find your patience wearing thin. Perhaps it's the daily traffic during your commute, the slow progress you're making on a personal goal, or the pace at which a family member learns something new. The next time you are in that situation, I want you to make it a personal laboratory for this practice. When you feel that familiar heat of frustration beginning to rise, see it as a signal. Instead of feeding it with mental complaints, take one deep breath and consciously choose to accept the slowness. Observe the feeling of impatience in your body without judgment, and then gently redirect your attention to something within your control in that very moment. The song on the radio, the feeling of your hands on the steering wheel, the next small step you can take toward your goal. This is not passive resignation. It is the active, powerful cultivation of calm persistence. It is the quiet understanding that while you cannot control the clock, you can always control your relationship with it. You can regain money but never lost time. This stark, simple truth cuts to the heart of our 27th shift, a principle the Stoics held above all others, the immeasurable value of your time. In a world obsessed with accumulating wealth, status, and possessions, Stoicism offers a radical reorientation. It argues that the only real currency you have that is truly finite and non-renewable is the seconds, minutes, and hours of your life. Everything else, money, property, even relationships, are external things that can, in theory, be lost and regained, but a moment once past is gone forever. To use your time mindfully, then, is the ultimate expression of Stoic wisdom because it reflects a deep understanding of what is truly within your control, your choices, and directs them toward your highest purpose. The Roman philosopher Seneca, in his profound essay on the shortness of life, laid out this argument with devastating clarity. He wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested. This is a breathtaking reframe of the common complaint that life is too short. Seneca insists the problem isn't the length of the play, but how poorly we've learned our lines and how much time we spend waiting in the wings for a cue that never comes. We act as if we have an endless supply of tomorrows, and so we fritter away our todays on distractions that add no value to our character or our peace. A life spent chasing validation on social media, nursing grievances, or mindlessly consuming entertainment is a life that feels short and unsatisfying because it was never truly lived. But a life spent on purposeful action, deep learning, and meaningful connection feels long and rich because every moment was invested, not just spent. Consider the stark contrast between two ways of spending a single evening. One person comes home from work, physically exhausted and mentally drained. They collapse onto the sofa, grab their phone, and descend into what Seneca might call a whirl of being busy. For the next 3 hours, they scroll through an endless stream of curated highlight reels from acquaintances, watch random viral videos, and refresh news feeds that offer no new information, only the same anxieties repackaged. The evening passes in a blur. When they finally go to bed, they feel no more rested, fulfilled, or peaceful than they did before. They have simply killed time. Now imagine an alternative. The same person comes home just as tired, but instead of reaching for the easiest distraction, they make a conscious choice. They spend 30 minutes reading a chapter of a book that challenges their thinking. They then have a 20-minute conversation with their partner without any screens in the room, truly listening and connecting. They might even spend 15 minutes journaling or practicing a skill they care about. The total time invested might be little more than an hour, but the quality of that hour transforms the entire evening. They go to bed feeling a sense of growth, connection, and calm. One evening was drained, the other was invested. The Stoic question is not how much time you have, but where you choose to point your attention within the time you are given. This practice requires a ruthless audit of your own life, because time wasters are often invisible habits, not conscious choices. We lose hours to the just checking trap on our phones, to half-watching television shows we don't even enjoy, to ruminating on past conversations, or to worrying about future events we cannot control. These are all forms of what the Stoics would call squandering your most precious resource. To value time above all is to become the vigilant guardian of your own attention, constantly asking, is this activity moving me toward virtue? Is it strengthening my relationships? Is it nourishing my mind or my body? If the answer is no, it is a candidate for elimination. This isn't about turning life into a grim, productivity-obsessed spreadsheet. It's about ensuring that your leisure is truly leisurely and restorative, not just a numbing distraction. It's the difference between watching a film you love and getting lost in it, versus mindlessly scrolling because you're avoiding the discomfort of being alone with your thoughts. So I want you to perform a simple but powerful audit. Cast your mind back over the last 24 hours. Replay the day in your mind, not to judge yourself, but to observe with the neutral eye of a scientist. Where did your attention go? How many minutes or hours were spent on activities that, in the grand scheme of your life's purpose, could be classified as a net drain? Identify just one. Perhaps it was 20 minutes lost to reading angry comments on a news article. Maybe it was an hour spent procrastinating on a task because you were afraid to start. It could even be the time spent mentally rehearsing an argument that already happened. Once you've identified that single time waste, you've taken the first step. You've brought an unconscious habit into the light of your awareness. From this moment forward, you have a choice. You can continue to give that particular thief your time, or you can reclaim it for something that truly matters, something that Seneca would say makes your life long, rather than just making it feel that way. How did you live today when the sun set and the noise of the world faded? Did your actions align with the values you claim to hold? This is the piercing, fundamental question at the heart of our 28th shift, the ancient Stoic practice of daily self-examination. This is not about self-criticism or dwelling on your mistakes with regret. It is about becoming the CEO of your own character, conducting a nightly performance review of your most important project, your life. The Stoics understood that a life without reflection is a life lived on autopilot, blown by every wind of impulse and external pressure. But a life that is regularly inspected, audited, and realigned is a life of intentional growth, where every day, no matter how challenging, becomes a deliberate step toward becoming the person you aspire to be. The great teacher Epictetus, who placed immense importance on this daily ritual, gave his students a clear and practical command. He said, "Let sleep not come upon your weary eyes until you have gone over each of the day's deeds 3 times. Where did I go wrong? What did I do? What duties left undone?" This is the original end of day debrief. Epictetus isn't suggesting a long, torturous session of self-flagellation. He is prescribing a focused, surgical review. The goal is to transform vague feelings of guilt or dissatisfaction into specific, actionable data by asking, "Where did I go wrong?" You are not just feeling bad about losing your temper. You are identifying the precise trigger, the traffic jam, the critical email, so you can recognize it earlier tomorrow. By asking, "What did I do?" you are cataloging your successes, however small, reinforcing the behaviors you want to repeat, and by asking, "What duties left undone?" you are creating a clear intention for the following day, ensuring you begin with purpose rather than confusion. The most powerful way to implement this is through a simple, consistent evening journaling ritual. This doesn't require a beautiful leather-bound book or hours of writing. It can be as simple as opening the Notes app on your phone for 5 minutes before bed. The structure is what matters. You might follow a simple 3-question template inspired by the Stoics themselves. First, what is one thing I did today that was aligned with my virtue? This question forces you to scan for the good, to celebrate the moment you chose patience over anger or integrity over convenience. Second, where did I let externals disturb my inner peace? This isn't about blaming the external event, but about examining your own reaction. Did a colleague's opinion hijack your mood? Did a change in plans trigger disproportionate frustration? Third, what is one small step I can take tomorrow to be better? This transforms reflection into forward momentum. The answer might be to take 3 deep breaths before responding to criticism, or to express gratitude to one person, or to simply approach your first task with more focused attention. This ritual does more than just review the day. It actively closes the loop on your experiences, files them away as lessons learned, and allows you to rest with a clear mind, unburdened by the unresolved clutter of the day's events. This practice of self-examination is the engine of all the other shifts we've discussed. It is the mechanism that turns philosophy from a theoretical idea into a lived reality. You can understand the concept of focusing on what you control, but it is only by reviewing your day that you see with crystal clarity the 10 times you forgot to do it. You can appreciate the idea of seeing obstacles as opportunities, but it is only in the quiet of the evening that you can reframe that afternoon's setback and find the hidden advantage you missed in the heat of the moment. This daily audit creates a powerful feedback loop of accountability, but it's accountability to the one person who matters most, your future self. It ensures you are not just accumulating years, but are actually evolving through them, refining your character with the same care a master craftsman refines their art. So tonight, before you let the day slip away into sleep, I invite you to try this. Find a quiet moment, and instead of reaching for one last distraction, turn your attention inward. Ask yourself these 3 questions, not as a judge, but as a compassionate coach reviewing the game tape. How did my actions today reflect my deepest values? When did I give away my peace to something outside my control? And what is one single, manageable intention I can set to make tomorrow a slightly more virtuous, more peaceful day? This small investment of 5 minutes is perhaps the highest yield habit you can cultivate, because it transforms your entire life from a series of random events into a conscious, purpose-driven work of art. Winter is not a mistake in the design of the year. It is a necessary, dormant period that makes the explosion of spring possible. In the very same way, struggles are not an error in the design of your life. They are the essential, challenging seasons that make your personal growth inevitable. This is the heart of our 29th shift, a fundamental reorientation that allows you to stop seeing setbacks as shocking anomalies and start recognizing them as the natural and even necessary rhythm of a life fully lived. The Stoic perspective asks us to normalize difficulty, to understand that it is not an interruption of our path but an intrinsic part of the path itself, woven into the fabric of existence to test us, to teach us, and ultimately to transform us. Marcus Aurelius, who faced more than his share of political betrayal, military defeats, and personal loss, constantly consoled himself with this very idea. He wrote in his Meditations, "The world's wisdom is this, that nature is a kind of mix, a weaving together of opposites of the just and the unjust." He is pointing to a profound truth about the universe. It operates on a principle of balance. You cannot have light without darkness, strength without resistance, or courage without fear. The obstacles are not separate from the blessings. They are the contrasting thread that gives the tapestry its depth and beauty. To expect a life of uninterrupted ease is to misunderstand the basic operating system of reality. It is to be like a sailor who is furious at the ocean for having waves. The waves aren't a problem, they are the nature of the ocean. Your job is not to calm the sea, but to learn how to sail. We can see this principle demonstrated with perfect clarity in the world of athletics. Consider a professional weightlifter preparing for a competition. They do not walk into the gym hoping for an easy, painless session. They know with absolute certainty that progress is synonymous with discomfort. They understand that to build stronger muscle fibers, they must first intentionally tear them through strenuous effort. The soreness that follows is not a sign of failure or a reason to quit. It is the direct biological signal that growth is happening beneath the surface. The athlete doesn't resist this pain. They have a relationship with it. They see it as natural, expected, and useful data. They embrace the burning sensation in their lungs during a sprint because they know it is expanding their capacity. In this context, the struggle is not the enemy of success. It is the very mechanism of success. The Stoic shift asks us to apply this exact same athletic mindset to the challenges of our emotional and psychological lives. A financial setback is not a catastrophe. It is the emotional equivalent of lifting a heavier weight, building the muscles of resilience and frugality. A difficult conversation is not something to be avoided. It is a sprint that expands your capacity for courage and honest communication. This reframe is the ultimate antidote to the victim mentality that so often accompanies hardship. When we see a problem as an unnatural injustice visited specifically upon us, we respond with resentment, self-pity, and a sense of powerlessness. But when we can look at the same problem and say, "This is winter. This is the season of struggle that must come before my spring," we respond with entirely different energy. We respond with the calm determination of a gardener who knows that the frost is necessary for the bulbs to bloom. The event itself hasn't changed, but our story about it has, and that story dictates whether we will be defeated by the experience or developed by it. So I want you to bring a current challenge into the light of this new perspective. Identify one setback you are facing right now. It could be a professional rejection, a health concern, a relational tension, or a personal goal that feels out of reach. Now, instead of framing it as a problem, I want you to actively reframe it as a natural and necessary part of your growth cycle. Ask yourself, what specific strength is this difficulty forcing me to develop? Is it teaching me patience, humility, or greater self-reliance? Is it clearing away an old path that was no longer right for me to make room for a new one? How might this struggle, as unwelcome as it feels today, be secretly preparing the ground for a future season of abundance and strength that I cannot yet see? By finding the necessity within the obstacle, you integrate it into your story. It ceases to be a villain and becomes a stern but valuable teacher, and you become its willing student, ready to learn whatever lesson it has to offer. The more you give, the richer you become. This beautiful paradox lies at the very heart of our 30th shift, a principle that might seem at odds with a philosophy of self-sufficiency, but is, in fact, one of its most profound expressions, the practice of generosity. The Stoics understood that human beings are inherently social creatures, bound together in a web of mutual interdependence. To withdraw into a shell of selfishness is not to strengthen your inner citadel. It is to isolate yourself on a barren island of your own making. True Stoic strength is not measured by how much you can hoard for yourself, but by how much you can afford to give away, not just materially, but through your time, your attention, your help, and perhaps most importantly, your forgiveness. This kind of giving does not deplete you. It paradoxically fills you up, connecting you to the wider human community and reinforcing your own sense of purpose and connection. The Roman philosopher Seneca, a man who possessed immense wealth, wrote extensively on the right relationship to it. He saw generosity not as an optional extra for the good days, but as a fundamental duty and a primary source of joy for a rational human being. He advised, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for a kindness. This simple statement reframes our entire social world. Every person you meet is no longer just a background character in your story or a potential obstacle. They are a potential recipient of your virtue. Seneca isn't suggesting you give until you bankrupt yourself. He is pointing to a mindset where your default orientation toward others is one of openness and contribution. This duty to be kind is not a burdensome obligation. It is presented as a joy, an opportunity to express your highest self in the world. The act of giving becomes its own reward, generating a deep and lasting satisfaction that far outweighs the fleeting pleasure of acquiring something new. It is the ultimate exercise in focusing on what you can control, your own actions, to create a ripple of good in the world around you. This philosophy is best understood through small, everyday actions rather than grand, dramatic gestures. Imagine you're walking into a coffee shop, mentally rehearsing your busy day, feeling the weight of your own to-do list. You notice an elderly person ahead of you struggling to manage their wallet, their cane, and their order. The easy, automatic response is to look away, to protect your precious time and mental space, to get your coffee and move on with your own life. Now apply the Stoic shift. You see this not as an interruption, but as the opportunity for kindness that Seneca described. You step forward and say, "Let me help you with that," holding their items while they pay. You offer a genuine smile. The entire interaction takes less than 60 seconds. You expect nothing in return, not a thank you, not a coffee paid forward, certainly not any social media recognition. You do it simply because it is the kind, human thing to do. You walk away with your coffee, but you also carry with you a subtle but real sense of warmth and connection. The weight of your own problems feels a little lighter because for one moment you were part of someone else's solution. Your world, which felt narrow and self-focused a minute ago, has just expanded. This is the alchemy of generosity. It transforms a mundane transaction into a moment of shared humanity, and in doing so, it enriches the giver more than the receiver. Generosity also acts as a direct antidote to the poison of selfishness and isolation that can so easily creep into modern life. When our focus is constantly turned inward on our own desires, our own problems, and our own need for more, we contract. We become emotionally brittle, easily offended, and quick to feel that the world owes us something. The act of giving in any form forces that focus outward. It requires you to see another person, to consider their needs, and to actively engage in their well-being. This outward focus is incredibly liberating. It breaks the hypnotic spell of your own ego. Forgiving someone who has wronged you is perhaps the highest form of this generosity. It is a gift you give that costs you nothing material, but requires immense emotional strength. You are giving up your claim to resentment, your attachment to the story of how you were wronged. In doing so, you are not saying what they did was okay. You are declaring that your inner peace is more valuable than your grievance. You free yourself from the prison of bitterness, and that is the richest reward of all. Therefore, the challenge today is not to plan a large charitable donation or to completely overhaul your life. It is to look for one single, small, and immediate opportunity to practice this Stoic virtue. Before this day is over, find one way to give without a single expectation of anything in return. It could be as simple as sending a heartfelt text of appreciation to someone who wouldn't expect it. It could be holding the elevator door for a stranger rushing down the hall. It could be offering your full, undistracted attention to a child telling you a long story, instead of half listening while looking at your phone. Perform this act consciously, as a deliberate practice of your philosophy. Notice how it makes you feel afterward. That subtle expansion in your chest, that quiet sense of connection, that is the true wealth Stoicism offers, the unshakable knowledge that you are a source of good in the world, and that in giving freely you have truly gained. Complaining is like praying for things to get worse. Sit with that for a moment. Every time we vocalize our dissatisfaction without purpose, we are not just describing a problem. We are actively reinforcing it in our own minds, amplifying its power over our emotional state, and wasting precious energy that could be channeled into something useful. This brings us to our 31st shift, a discipline that might seem simple on the surface but is incredibly transformative in practice: the conscious elimination of complaining. The Stoic approach to hardship is binary and brutally efficient. If a situation is within your power to change, take action immediately. If it is not, accept it with quiet equanimity. Complaining exists in a futile middle ground. It is neither effective action nor peaceful acceptance. It is the wheel spinning of the mind, generating heat and noise but taking you precisely nowhere. The great teacher Epictetus, who had every reason to complain about his early life in slavery, gave us the perfect lens through which to view this. He taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And in perhaps an even more pointed remark, he advised, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Complaining is the very opposite of embodiment. It is the explanation of your suffering, a narrative you build around an event that adds layers of unnecessary misery to the original facts. The Stoic goal is to see the event itself as neutral. The car breaks down, that is a fact. The complaint, "Why does this always happen to me? This is going to ruin my whole week. I can't afford this," is the opinion you add to the fact. Epictetus would argue that the opinion is where the real suffering lies, not in the event. Your vocal complaint is you voluntarily drinking poison and hoping the situation will get sick. Let's make this practical with a scenario we all know too well. You're working on an important project with a tight deadline, and your computer suddenly freezes, causing you to lose 30 minutes of unsaved work. The immediate, automatic reaction is a torrent of complaints. You might slam your desk, curse the manufacturer, and lament your terrible luck to anyone within earshot. This reaction feels justified, even satisfying in the moment, but what has it accomplished? You have now compounded the original problem, lost work, with a secondary problem, a spiked heart rate, a ruined mood, and several more minutes of unproductive fuming. Now apply the Stoic shift. The computer froze, the work is lost. This is the neutral fact. You feel the surge of frustration. That's the signal. But instead of giving it a voice, you take one deep breath and engage the binary choice. Is this within my control? You cannot unfreeze the past, but you can control what you do next. The action path. You restart the computer. You take a moment to reconstruct the lost ideas while they're fresh, and you save your work every 2 minutes from now on. The acceptance path. If the work is truly gone for good, you accept the loss as a lesson in the impermanence of digital effort and the importance of better habits. In either case, the energy that would have been poured into complaining is redirected into a solution or into peaceful resignation. You haven't just avoided a negative behavior, you have actively conserved your mental and emotional resources for the challenges that truly require them. This practice extends far beyond minor tech glitches into the very fabric of our social interactions. How much of our daily conversation with colleagues, friends, and family is made up of a low-grade hum of communal complaining about the weather, the government, the traffic, the boss? This shared misery might feel like bonding, but it is actually a mutual drain. It creates a culture of powerlessness where everyone agrees that things are bad, but no one feels empowered to change their small part of it. The Stoic challenge is to become a silent revolutionary against this culture. This doesn't mean you become a Pollyanna who denies reality. It means you become a person who either fixes problems or leaves them be, but does not indulge in the empty ritual of lamenting them. When someone tries to pull you into a complaint session, you have a choice. You can either offer a solution. Yes, that process is inefficient. What if we proposed a new system to the team? Or you can simply change the subject to something more constructive or enjoyable. By refusing to add your energy to the complaint, you not only protect your own peace, but you also subtly elevate the conversation for everyone involved. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to become a detective of your own speech for just one day. I want you to make a conscious effort to notice the next complaint that starts to form on your tongue. It might be about the long line you're standing in, the bland food you're eating, or the inconsiderate behavior of a stranger. When you feel the words coming, I want you to pause and simply not say them. Swallow the complaint. In that moment of silence, observe what happens inside you. You'll likely feel a strange sense of empowerment, as if you've just cancelled a subscription to a service you never used that was automatically deducting energy from your account every single day. That is the feeling of reclaiming your sovereignty over your own mind. That is the feeling of becoming emotionally untouchable, because you have realized that your peace is too valuable to be traded for the fleeting satisfaction of a shared grievance. Courage isn't the absence of fear, but action despite it. This is a crucial distinction that separates Hollywood bravado from the kind of courage the Stoics actually valued. They weren't interested in the fearless hero who feels no trepidation. They were interested in the ordinary person who feels the full, icy grip of fear and yet still chooses to move forward toward what is right and necessary. This is the heart of our 30-second shift, cultivating the virtue of courage, which the Stoics saw not as a grand, once-in-a-lifetime event, but as a daily practice of choosing resolve over avoidance, of leaning into difficulty rather than away from it. This practice is what truly expands your personal freedom and builds an unshakable foundation of self-respect. The Roman philosopher Seneca, who wrote powerfully about the human condition, defined this kind of bravery with stunning precision. He said, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." This quote is so much more than it appears on the surface. Seneca isn't talking about the courage needed in a war zone. He's talking about the profound courage required to face an ordinary Tuesday when you are burdened by grief, anxiety, or depression. He is pointing to the courage of getting out of bed, of facing another day, of choosing to engage with life when every instinct tells you to withdraw. But he also spoke to a more active form of courage, noting that brave men rejoice in adversity, just as brave soldiers triumph in war. For Seneca, courage is a form of mastery, not mastery over the external threat, but mastery over your own internal fear. It is the ability to see the fear, acknowledge its presence, and then politely but firmly ask it to step aside so that your reasoned self can take the wheel and do what needs to be done. Imagine a practical, everyday scenario that calls for this stoic courage. You're in a team meeting at work, and the discussion turns to a new project. A senior leader proposes a direction that you know from your on-the-ground experience is fundamentally flawed and will likely lead to failure. You feel the familiar physical signs of fear. Your heart starts to pound, your palms get clammy, and a voice in your head immediately pipes up, "Just stay quiet. Don't rock the boat, it's not worth it. This is the moment of choice. The path of avoidance is easy and safe. You can nod along, swallow your concern, and avoid any potential conflict or embarrassment." But the path of courage, though it feels riskier, is the only path that aligns with your integrity. You take a quiet breath, feel the fear fully, and then raise your hand. Your voice might quaver slightly as you begin. "I appreciate that direction, and I want to offer a different perspective based on what I've seen in the market." You aren't guaranteed a win. The leader might dismiss your idea, but you have already won the only battle that truly matters, the internal one. You acted in accordance with your values despite the fear. You chose courage over comfort, and that single choice does more for your self-respect than 1,000 silent, comfortable meetings ever could. This practice of courage is what systematically dismantles the invisible cages we build for ourselves. Every time you avoid a difficult conversation, you reinforce the bars of a cage labeled, "I am not capable of handling conflict." Every time you decline an invitation because of social anxiety, you add a lock to a door labeled, "I don't belong." But every time you act with courage, you take a sledgehammer to one of those bars. You prove to yourself through direct experience that you can handle the discomfort, that you can survive the outcome, and that your self-worth is not dependent on everything going smoothly. This is how courage creates freedom. It liberates you from the prison of your own self-doubt and expands the territory in which you feel confident to operate. You start with small acts of bravery, and over time you build a life where you are the one calling the shots, not your fears. So I want to make this shift immediately actionable for you. This isn't about planning to run into a burning building. It's about identifying one single, manageable fear that currently has a hold over you. I want you to take a moment and ask yourself, what is one thing I have been avoiding because I'm afraid? Perhaps it's the fear of making a phone call to schedule a daunting appointment. Maybe it's the fear of posting a creative project online where others might see it. It could be the fear of asking a question in a group where you worry you might sound foolish. Identify that one thing. Now make a pact with your future self. Decide that within the next 7 days you will take one concrete step toward confronting that fear. You don't have to eliminate the fear. You simply have to take the action while the fear is present. The goal is not a successful outcome. The goal is the courageous attempt itself. That attempt, no matter how small, is a direct deposit into your account of self-trust, and it pays compound interest for the rest of your life. In the grand scheme of the cosmos, we are brief sparks in an unimaginably vast eternity, a single thread in a tapestry woven across billions of years. This cosmic perspective is the foundation of our 33rd shift, a virtue that is often misunderstood but is absolutely essential for genuine growth and peace, the practice of humility. Stoic humility is not about self-deprecation or thinking less of yourself. It is about thinking of yourself less. It is the clear-eyed, rational recognition of our true scale within the universe, a perspective that automatically deflates the ego's constant inflation and opens the door to limitless learning and connection. It is the quiet understanding that no matter how much we know, it is a drop in the ocean of all there is to understand, and that true strength lies in acknowledging what we do not know. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of the known world, constantly humbled himself with this thought. He wrote in his private meditations, "Pride is a master of deception. When you think you're occupied in the weightiest business, that's when he has you in his spell." This is a stunning admission from the most powerful man of his time. He is warning himself that the feeling of self-importance is a trap, a spell that distorts your perception and makes you believe your affairs are the center of the universe. This pride, he knew, is the enemy of reason. It makes us defensive, closed off to feedback, and blind to our own errors. It isolates us on a tiny island of our own certainty, cutting us off from the wisdom and perspectives of the 7 billion other souls navigating this same human experience. Humility, in contrast, is the key that unlocks the gates of that island, allowing us to connect, to learn, and to see the world with greater clarity. We can see this virtue in action in a simple, modern scenario. Imagine a seasoned professional, an expert in their field with 20 years of experience, leading a project review. A younger, less experienced colleague tentatively suggests a different approach, one that challenges the veteran's initial plan. The prideful reaction is one of immediate dismissal. The ego feels threatened, interpreting the suggestion as a challenge to its authority and competence. It might respond with a condescending remark, a quick listing of credentials, or a shutdown of the conversation entirely. This protects the ego in the short term, but it costs the project a potentially brilliant idea and damages team trust. Now apply the Stoic shift. The humble leader, secure in their own worth and guided by the larger goal of excellence rather than self-aggrandizement, responds entirely differently. They feel no threat. They lean in with curiosity, saying, "That's an interesting angle. Help me understand your thinking on that." They are willing to admit that their first plan might not be the best one. They actively defer to the unique expertise of their colleague, even if that colleague has less overall experience. This act of humility doesn't diminish their authority, it amplifies it. It demonstrates a confidence so deep that it doesn't need to be propped up by always being right. It builds a culture of collaboration and psychological safety where the best ideas can surface from anywhere. This practice is the bedrock of all true learning. A mind that is full of itself has no room for anything new. It meets every new piece of information with a filter. Does this confirm what I already believe, or does it threaten it? A humble mind, aware of its own limitations, meets new information with a sense of excitement and curiosity. It is a forever student of life, always open to being corrected, always eager to expand its understanding. This doesn't mean having no convictions. It means holding those convictions lightly, being willing to update them in the face of better evidence or wiser counsel. This openness is incredibly liberating. It frees you from the exhausting burden of pretending to know everything and the constant anxiety of being found out. It allows you to say the 3 most powerful words in the English language, "I don't know," often followed by the 4th, "yet." So I want to invite you to turn the microscope inward for a moment. Cast your mind back over the last week and find one specific interaction. Was there a moment where you felt the prickly heat of defensiveness rise to your skin? A conversation where you instinctively doubled down on your point of view instead of truly listening? Or perhaps there was a moment where you gracefully admitted you were wrong, or where you consciously sought out the opinion of someone who knew more than you. Don't judge the memory, simply observe it. What did that moment of pride or humility feel like in your body? What was the outcome? This act of recollection isn't about self-criticism, it's about gathering data. It's about recognizing the feeling of the ego's clutch so that the next time it happens, you can consciously choose to release it, to open your hands and your mind, and to embrace the profound strength and peace that comes with saying, I see. Teach me. Virtue is a skill built by effort, not a gift. This simple but radical reframe lies at the heart of our 34th shift, a principle that places the power of transformation squarely in your own hands. The Stoics were not interested in the lottery of birth or the fleeting advantage of natural talent. They were obsessed with the one thing every single person can control, regardless of their starting point: the quality and consistency of their effort. They believed that excellence of character, like excellence in any craft, is not a mysterious endowment given to a select few at birth, but the direct and inevitable result of dedicated, daily practice. This focus on effort over innate ability is the ultimate declaration of self-determination, ensuring that your potential is never limited by a fixed label like smart or talented, but is instead an open-ended project that you get to build, one deliberate action at a time. The great teacher Epictetus, who himself rose from the status of a slave to one of history's most influential philosophers, was unequivocal on this point. He drew a crucial distinction that separates theoretical knowledge from lived wisdom, famously teaching, "If you didn't learn these things in order to put them into practice, what did you learn them for?" And he went even further, stating, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." For Epictetus, philosophy was not an abstract intellectual game to be debated in a classroom. It was a practical, physical discipline, like training for the Olympics of the soul. You wouldn't expect to become a champion discus thrower by reading a book about it. You would expect to spend years in the gym, strengthening your muscles, refining your technique, and enduring the pain of repetition. Epictetus argues that building a virtuous and resilient character requires the exact same commitment to grueling, sweaty, daily practice. The theory, the quotes, the principles, the ideas, is merely the playbook. The real work happens in the choices you make when you're tired, tempted, and tested. Your effort in those moments is what forges your character, not your IQ or your genetic predisposition. We can see the profound impact of this shift in the simplest of interactions, particularly in how we praise ourselves and others. Imagine two children working on a difficult puzzle. One child solves it quickly, seemingly without much effort. The other child struggles, tries different pieces, gets frustrated, but persists and eventually succeeds. If we praise the first child by saying, "You're so smart," we are anchoring their sense of worth to a fixed, innate trait. The unintended message is that their success is due to something they were born with, not something they did. This can create a fragile mindset, making them afraid to attempt harder puzzles in the future for fear of failing and no longer appearing smart. Now, consider praising the second child by focusing on their effort. "I am so impressed by how you kept trying different strategies and didn't give up. Your perseverance really paid off." This praise reinforces that their success was a direct result of their controllable actions. It teaches them that challenge is not a threat to their identity, but an opportunity to exercise and grow their abilities. The Stoic approach encourages us to apply this same lens to our own achievements. Did you succeed because you're a natural, or did you succeed because you prepared meticulously, stayed late to practice, and remained focused under pressure? The latter narrative is not only more accurate, but it is also infinitely more empowering for your future endeavors. This relentless focus on process over product, on effort over endowment, is what creates a truly growth-oriented mindset. It frees you from the tyranny of comparison because you are no longer measuring yourself against someone else's supposed innate advantages. Your only relevant comparison is between the effort you exerted yesterday and the effort you can exert today. A talented musician who coasts on their natural ear will eventually be surpassed by a less gifted musician who practices with obsessive discipline. A naturally calm person who never practices resilience will shatter under pressure that a less serene but more practiced individual can withstand with grace. The Stoics remind us that your starting point is irrelevant. What matters is the direction you are moving and the force you are applying to get there. Your character is not a statue carved once and forever immutable. It is a living garden that requires daily weeding, watering, and care. The quality of the harvest depends entirely on the consistency of the gardener's labor, not the quality of the seeds they were given. So I want to offer you a simple but profound practice in reorienting your sense of accomplishment. Sometime today, I want you to pick one area of your life, however small, and perform a brief audit of your effort. It could be related to your work, your health, a relationship, or a personal hobby. Instead of asking yourself, was I successful, or was I talented today? Ask a different set of questions entirely. Did I show up fully, even when I didn't feel like it? Did I persist through a moment of frustration without quitting? Did I put in one more ounce of focus than was strictly necessary? Your task is to find one specific instance where you exercised effort for its own sake, and to genuinely appreciate yourself for that exertion. Acknowledge the choice you made to try, to push, to practice. That effort, that single act of will, is the only thing that ever truly belongs to you, and it is the raw material from which all growth and all genuine self-respect is built. We began with control over our judgments, and we end with the ultimate perspective, the sobering, liberating awareness that your time is not unlimited. This final shift is the capstone that locks all the others into place, transforming them from interesting ideas into urgent, non-negotiable principles for living. Remembering your mortality, the practice the ancients called Memento Mori, is not a morbid fixation on an end, but a vibrant, clarifying focus on the quality of your now. It is the lens that instantly vaporizes the trivial, magnifies the essential, and infuses every single day with a profound sense of purpose and gratitude. This awareness is the great synthesizer. It ties every other shift together into a cohesive philosophy for a meaningful life, because when you genuinely understand that your time is a finite resource, you become fiercely protective of how you spend it, what you give your attention to, and who you choose to be. The Roman philosopher Seneca, in his profound letters, captured the stunning brevity of existence with a metaphor that has echoed for 2 millennia. He wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it." But he also provided a more jarring image, noting that we are all acting in a play where the length of our role is not ours to decide, and that we must be ready for the director to signal our exit at any moment. He argued that we are not given a short life, but we make it short by wasting it. We behave as if we have an endless supply of tomorrows, and so we squander our todays on distractions, grievances, and pursuits that add no real weight or value to our character. Memento Mori is the antidote to this squandering. It is the internal alarm clock that shakes us from the slumber of complacency and asks the most important question you will ever confront. If today were your last, would you be proud of how you spent it? Imagine applying this lens to the most mundane of choices. You wake up and face a day that, on the calendar, looks ordinary. But you make the conscious decision to hold the question in the back of your mind. What if this is it? How does that change the texture of the day? Suddenly, the temptation to waste the morning scrolling through social media loses its power. You wouldn't spend your final hours consuming other people's highlight reels. The minor irritation you feel toward your partner over a mess in the kitchen evaporates. You wouldn't choose a petty argument as your last interaction with someone you love. The difficult project you've been procrastinating on suddenly feels urgent and meaningful. You'd want to leave behind one last thing done well. This perspective doesn't lead to a frantic, panicked state. It leads to a deeply calm and laser-focused clarity. It is the ultimate tool for prioritization, effortlessly separating the gold of what truly matters from the gravel of daily distraction. This practice is the thread that weaves through every single shift we've discussed. It gives ferocious urgency to the first shift, focusing on what you control, because why would you waste a single second on what you cannot? It gives profound meaning to reframing obstacles, because every challenge becomes a final, precious opportunity to practice your strength. It deepens the practice of gratitude because you see every meal, every conversation, every sunset as a gift you are witnessing for what could be the last time. It makes integrity non-negotiable because you are building the legacy you will leave behind in the hearts of those who remember you. Memento Mori is the silent engine underneath all of Stoic philosophy, the constant whisper that ensures your philosophy is not just a theory, but a lived and urgent reality. So I want to leave you with a final, deeply personal challenge, one that can crystallize this entire journey. Take a moment of absolute silence. Now project your mind forward to the very end. Imagine your own life complete, its story written. When those who knew you best gather and speak of you, what is the one single sentence you would want them to say? Not a list of your accomplishments or possessions, but a sentence that captures the essence of your character. Would it be that you were a person of unwavering integrity? That you were deeply kind and made others feel seen, that you faced adversity with relentless courage, that you loved without condition? Write that sentence down. Carry it with you. Let that sentence be the compass for every choice you make from this moment forward, the guiding star built from the awareness of your own mortality, ensuring that your limited time is spent building a life that is not just long, but truly significant. And so we arrive at the end of our journey through these 35 profound shifts. Yet this is truly just the beginning of yours. These are not isolated tricks or quick fixes. They are interconnected tools, each one strengthening the other, all forged in the fire of ancient Stoic wisdom to help you build an unshakable emotional resilience. We've traveled from the foundational recognition of what is within our control to the ultimate perspective offered by our own mortality, exploring a complete philosophy for a life of purpose and peace. This toolkit is now yours to carry forward, a mental Swiss Army knife for navigating the complexities of the modern world with grace and strength. Becoming emotionally untouchable was never about building walls of numbness or disconnecting from the rich tapestry of human feeling. It is the exact opposite. It is about cultivating a profound inner strength and a deep, abiding peace that allows you to engage with life more fully, more vulnerably, and more courageously than ever before. It is the strength of the deep-rooted oak that bends in the hurricane without breaking, not the brittle rigidity of stone that shatters under pressure. This resilience means you can feel the full force of sadness without being drowned by it, experience anger without being controlled by it, and navigate joy without a clinging fear of its end. You become untouchable not because nothing can touch you, but because the things that do touch you cannot knock you off your center. They cannot dismantle your core. If we were to distill this entire journey down to its essential pillars, we would find four powerful themes recurring again and again. First, the theme of control, the wisdom to know the difference between your own judgments and actions and the external events that are beyond your command, freeing you from futile battles and conserving your energy for what truly matters. Second, the theme of perspective, the ability to zoom out from the narrow lens of the immediate moment to see the cosmic view, recognizing the impermanence of all things and the natural rhythm of obstacles and growth, which dissolves trivial worries and fosters immense patience. Third, the theme of virtue, the commitment to living with integrity, courage, justice, and wisdom, ensuring that your moral compass provides unwavering direction even in the most confusing of storms, granting you a self-respect that no external opinion can ever diminish. And finally, the theme of presence, the practice of anchoring your awareness firmly in the only time you ever truly possess, the present moment, which is the very ground where all action, all peace, and all life actually occurs. Marcus Aurelius leaves us with a final thought to carry in our hearts, a perfect summation of this entire transformation. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." This is the ultimate secret of emotional resilience. Your experience of life is not determined by the events themselves, but by the quality of the thoughts you choose to entertain about them. You have the power to dye your soul with the colors of gratitude, acceptance, courage, and compassion. The world will provide the raw materials, the challenges, the joys, the setbacks, but you hold the brush. You choose the pigments. Your mission now is not to attempt all 35 shifts at once, for that way lies overwhelm. Instead, I invite you to look back over these principles and choose just one. Just one shift to focus on for the next week. Perhaps it's the practice of negative visualization to heighten your gratitude each morning. Maybe it's the commitment to respond instead of react the next time you feel triggered. It could be as simple as dedicating 5 minutes each evening to silence and self-examination. Choose one and practice it with intention. I would be deeply honored to hear about your experience. Share your chosen shift and what you discover in the comments below. Let's create a community of practice, supporting each other in this journey toward greater strength and peace. If these Stoic insights have resonated with you, consider subscribing to this channel. This is a place dedicated to exploring timeless wisdom for modern life, and your subscription helps this community of growth and support continue to flourish. Thank you for investing this time in your inner development. Remember, the journey to becoming emotionally untouchable is a lifelong practice, not a final destination. Go forth, choose your thoughts with care, and live your philosophy.